Okay, let's get it. It is drive time. It is a Friday afternoon. It's about 6 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. We have some of the best weather we've had, quite frankly, all year. We are approaching 70 degrees this afternoon. It is sunny and clear across the valley. And when I say across the valley, I mean across the valley. I'm not quite sure where I am. I want to give a shout out to our sales staff right out of the gates, because if the last 2 weeks indicate anything, they know me, and I feel seen, I feel heard, because when I'm not selling RVs, I want to be in daybreak, because I think that's where I am, right, Cynthia? I mean, you know, if I'm not going to be if I'm not going to be selling an RV, I want to be at a Smith's in daybreak. Oh, we're in South Jordan. I don't know. I've never been here before. I honestly feel like I'm on a different planet. However, I'm very excited to be here at Smith's. Cynthia's laughing at me right out of the gates. We're at Smith's. We do this every Friday prior to Utah football tailgate events. Typically, we try to be a little more centrally located. So here's the address, and best of luck. If you're listening to us in Salt Lake, leave like now. If you want to get here prior to us saying goodnight at 6. It is 5448 Daybreak Parkway. The ESPN 700 van is right out front. We are set up next to the Starbucks location, and I am drinking a Red Bull. So we're off to a roaring start. Go inside the Smiths, turn right, come by and say what's up. I've got tailgate passes for our ultimate tailgate experience. Oh, these are the Smiths tailgate passes. Actually, these are like a lot better. I love our tailgate, but Smiths is set up right next to us. And they've got a bunch of different food options, bunch of different drink options prior to kickoff. And the Smith's tailgate actually opens 3 hours prior to kickoff. So kickoff on Saturday night will be at 8:15 as Utah takes on Cincinnati with College game day in town. The game day setup at President's Circle looks awesome. Drove by it earlier today. They are ready to roll. We'll kind of give you some information about ultimately what you need to do to gain access. Make sure you have your UID card if you're a current student. And their pregame coverage tomorrow morning will begin at 7 o'clock, so you can roll on by and check out the preeminent college football pregame show in America, with all due respect to our friends at Big Noon Kickoff. It's kind of like Inside the NBA on TNT, how ESPN's just tried to rip that off for years. Now, they obviously have that product. Big Noon Kickoff is clearly trying to take the game day model and make it their own, and they've done a good job. It's a good show, but make no mistake, this is the highest watched, preeminent college football pregame show in America, and they'll get going at 7 o'clock tomorrow. So if you're a student, make sure you have your UID card to gain access, and let's show up. Let's get some good creative signs going. And let's show well. The eyes of the college football world will be on Salt Lake City coming up tomorrow, as Utah and Cincinnati will do battle. Of course, the pregame show for 3 hours, then you've got to wait until 8:15 for kick. So if you want to just roll on by and say what's up, again, if you're in Salt Lake, leave like now. See if you can get access to a helicopter. It's 5448 Daybreak Parkway. We're set up next to the Starbucks. I have 25 $10 Smith's gift cards, one per person, okay? So roll on by. I'll hook you up with $10 to go grocery shopping. And I'll give you 2 of these tailgate passes for the Smith's tailgate. Of course, the official partner of the Utah Utes, and we are at Smith's somewhere out southwest, South Jordan or Daybreak, in that area. So the address is 5448 Daybreak Parkway. Smith's gift cards, tailgate passes, and of course, then take the gift card and get what you need to make sure you're locked and loaded for the tailgate. There's only 2 home games left, and obviously it starts tomorrow with a big one against Cincinnati. We've got a lot of good college football guests, mostly football in the show today. We'll do a little NFL as well, as week 9 in the NFL, got going last night. The Baltimore Ravens are back in the mix, man. They've got a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way, and Lamar Jackson is back under center, and they had no problem dispatching of the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins fired their general manager today. They are going to allow Mike McDaniel to finish the season. But Chris Grier is out as the Dolphins general manager after another bad loss. But Mike McDaniel will finish the season as the head coach of the Dolphins. This feels like one of these stories where they're probably going to let him go. Probably going to let Mike McDaniel go at the end of the year. But he's so highly thought of and respected. This is his first opportunity as a head coach. I could see him kind of recycled somewhere else and having a lot of success after a situation with Miami that looked really, really exciting at the start, but of course has not been able to be sustainable. Dolphins are now 2-7. They're 1-3 at home. The Ravens improved to 3-5, and they get their first road win of the year with Lamar Jackson under center. So we'll do a little pro football on the show. Oh, wait a second. My bad. I buried the lead. I know what you guys are excited about on this Friday. I forgot. But you guys didn't. It is the opening day of the NBA Emirates Cup. Yep, I know. My bad. And the Jazz are a part of it. They're taking on Phoenix tonight in NBA Cup group play, right? NBA Cup group play, people. We actually will do a little NBA on the show today. But not a lot, mostly college football-centric, NFL-centric as well. On the program, we will see if the LA Dodgers can stay alive tonight at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, as Toronto has a 3-2 lead. They have not won a World Series in about 3 decades plus, and we'll see if the Dodgers can stay alive. So little Major League Baseball, of course, with the World Series going on too. A lot to do on the program. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations, you made it. It is weekend time. And come party out here in South Jordan, a sentence that I never thought I'd say. 5448 Daybreak Parkway at the Smiths. Got some Smiths gift cards for you. We got some tailgate passes for you guys to get ready for the game coming up. BYU on a bye. They will look at to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech has kind of a sneaky game against K-State. It's not a cakewalk for anybody, even though K-State hasn't turned out to be the team we thought they were going to be this year. BYU with the week off to prepare for Tech when Tech has to deal with K-State. And, of course, if you are a Utah fan, you're just cheering for chaos. Do you see 3 losses on BYU's schedule? I don't know that I do. Do you see 3 losses on Tech's schedule? Well, if you think BYU can beat them in their building, maybe we'll have something to work with here. But a big weekend ahead in college football. To start the year, most people had Penn State, Ohio State at the Shoe, circled as potentially the biggest game of the season. That, of course, has not taken place. Penn State still with some talent. They have not won a conference game. James Franklin is no longer their coach. Ohio State unbeaten, a little bit of a soft schedule. Will Arch Manning go in Austin as a sneaky team out of the SEC, a top 10 team now? Vanderbilt is down at Austin at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium. Arch is dealing with some health issues. We got Miami, SMU. Houston welcomes in West Virginia out of the Big 12. Louisville will take on Va Tech. Indiana, the number 2 team in the country, is taking on Maryland. The world's largest cocktail party. I know that certain people do not want us to use that moniker for Georgia, Florida. Billy Gonzalez, the interim head coach for the Gators right now. Georgia has won 6 of their last 7 games. I referenced Texas Tech, K-State. That is in Manhattan, so a tough test. We'll see if Tech can continue to stay unbeaten. Good top 20 matchup in Knoxville between Oklahoma and Tennessee. And then kind of a sneaky game in Lincoln. USC, number 23 in the country, takes on Nebraska. They played a little bit better as of late. Matt Rule just got a contract extension. So a lot to do on the show. Good to have you guys with us on the program today. We'll start things off on a Friday afternoon with Kyle Bonagura, who covers college football for ESPN. Our buddy who used to cover the Pac-12 and now kind of does a little bit of everything for college football. Also covers the U.S. men's national team for the Worldwide Leader. We'll bring in Kyle today to start things off on a Friday. Sam Bruckhouse, weekly visit from Sumer Sports. We'll do a little college and pro with Sam today. How about Stanford Steve, one of our favorites from ESPN, formerly the producer of the SVP and Rosillo show. That's kind of how he broke onto the scene. Does a bunch of stuff with Van Pelt's show and, of course, is a big part of College Game Day. Always enjoy my conversations with Stanford Steve. We'll bring him in today. Then we'll do some NBA with Dave McMiniman. The NBA Daily Assist kind of creeping back into the rotation now that pro basketball is back. So Kyle Bonagura, Sam Bruckhouse, Stanford Steve, Dave McMiniman, me, Spence Checketts, live today. Smiths, I'll just give you the address, 5448 Daybreak Parkway. Come on out and say hello, and we have $25 Smiths gift cards for you. We also have tailgate passes, and I think we might have a listener who's stopping by already. Look at that. 5448 Daybreak Parkway is where you find us. And about 75 miles northeast of us is Porter Larson, who produces the show. I don't know where I am. I am either in Daybreak or like central Nebraska. I've never been here before.
Did you say 75 miles?
I don't know where I am, dude. Like, it took me 52 minutes to get here from my house. But we do have a listener stopping by.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're near Harriman High School, for reference.
Okay, so we're near Harriman High School. Is that where we're at?
Hey, if you want
we're close.
to...
What's your name? Hi, what's your name? Nice to meet you, Angie. Thank you for stopping by. Hey, we have a listener that stopped by, okay? So people listen out this way.
If you ever want to go to a Bees game, Spence.
Oh, really?
You could park at that Smith's, I bet.
Are you serious? Are we close to the Bees Stadium?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So people actually do live here and exist out here and, like, do day-to-day functional things. Is that what you're telling me?
You'd be amazed. The suburban sprawl in Utah is not stopping anytime soon either.
You have to understand, if it's up to me, I don't go south of 33rd and I don't go west of our studio. So that's kind of where I exist.
Come on, man of the people.
I am a man of the people. I'm just admitting that I don't know where I am. I've never been here before. But I'm going to have a good time, Porter, because I'm a good time guy. You know that about me.
I like it. Yeah. Any Smiths is good in my book, just to be clear.
Oh, for sure. No, we love Smiths. Put me in a Smiths on Mars, and I'm down. And shout out to Angie, who just rolled in and got a couple of tailgate passes and a $10 gift card. So out here at Smiths, apparently I'm close to Harriman High and where the Bees play baseball. So there's a couple of spots for you guys to keep in mind. It's 5548 Daybreak Parkway. Shout out to Angie, who just rolled by. All right, Kyle Boniger, our first guest right out of the gates. But before we catch up with Kyle, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too, at Prize Picks, it is time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
You guys already know Prize Picks is the best way to win cash on football, whether it's the Niners or the Broncos or the Jets, if you'd like, or the Cowboys, if you're Porter, whatever your favorite team is. Best place to win cash on football. Well, basketball is now back, and pro basketball has started now. Best place to win cash on the Jazz or the Lakers or the Warriors. So, bottom line, they now offer stacks, which is a really cool thing. If you feel like there's a player that's about to go off, namely Steph Curry, you can pick Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, and assists. It's called a stack now on Prize Picks. You can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. That's promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. It is good to be right. We have another listener stopping by. What's up, buddy? How are you? Good to see you. All right. See, Porter, people exist out here. Stop being such a snob.
Spence, that area, and to your credit, it's been fairly recent, right? Those of us who remember Salt Lake 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was nothing out there. There was nothing out there. And now there is a literal city right around the train station on the parkway. So to your credit, if you haven't been out there in like literally 5 years, it's a completely different place.
No, when I put in the address, I'm like, are we mining for minerals in the Ochre Mountains? But here we are at Smith's, and it's highly functional. And we've had 2 listeners stop by. Look at that, 5448 Daybreak Parkway, out here, wherever it is, by Harriman High and where the Bees play baseball. Anyway, we have a show to do, so we are going to do that today. And we are going to get you ready for a massive game and a massive opportunity for Utah as a football team and Utah as an institution and as a community to kind of show America what we're all about here as College Game Day is in town. Now, the pregame show for our friends at ESPN will begin at 7 o'clock, bright and early. And we're going to have Stanford Steve stop by today. He was a big part of that broadcast. Nice work by Porter to lock him in. The line has stayed steady since you and I last spoke. Utah remains a 10-point favorite. It opened up at 5.5. It moved up to 10.5 at one point. And actually, as I'm looking, I've got 7 sportsbooks pulled up in front of me. ESPN Bet and FanDuel are where you find that 10.5 line. And then DraftKings and some other spots. Currently, it's at 10. Now, I would not touch that line. Okay, my advice to you is don't bet on sports at all, But if you're one of those that enjoys these things for entertainment purposes only, that is a line that is a little bit terrifying. A friend of the program, Josh Pate, earlier today actually, and Josh does this thing where he's like, hey, it's the model, it's not me. It's a very fun way to like make people angry and then remove himself from blame. His model believes Utah is going to win and cover, okay, for whatever that's worth. Joel Klatt picked Utah to win but not cover. Most of the predictions that I've seen, whether it's a piece that I've read or a podcast I've listened to, believe Utah will win this game, but that is a scary, scary line. So ultimately it moved a couple of different times. You know, when the Evan Pryor injury news came down, that affected the line a little bit. Evan Pryor is the leading rusher for Cincinnati. Now, they've got depth at that position. Evan Pryor, I believe he was an Ohio State transfer, 66 carries on the season, 478 yards. Tony Pike joined the show this week. Tony played quarterback for Cincinnati under Brian Kelly. He's now their color commentator on their broadcast. And he called Evan Pryor their home run hitter. He's super quick, very speedy, averaging over 7 per. 3 touchdowns on the season. But the Tawi Walker kid, who I think is a Wisconsin transfer, he's a bigger kid. He's more of a bulldozer. 90 carries on the season, 466 yards, an average of 5.2 per. But Brendan Sorsby, and if you didn't hear Morgan Scally on Sean's show today, excellent interview. Really good job by Sean. And Morgan gave a lot of information and a lot of like in detailed breakdowns of who Brendan Sorsby is. Very quick decision maker. A lot of RPO stuff with Cincinnati's offense. And it really does come down to a combination of a good offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, and a quarterback that can make very quick decisions and make you pay. If you lag off, he's going to run the football. And if you pressure him because he gets the ball out so quickly, he's been able to have a really good year. Brendan Sorsby leads the Big 12 in QBR. He has 5 games this year where he's ran for 2 touchdowns and thrown for 2 touchdowns. He has 20 touchdown passes on the season and only 1 interception. And that interception was at the end of the Nebraska game, which was their first game of the year. He has played high-level football all year long. 69 carries for 425 yards, an average of 6.2 per, and 7 rushing touchdowns on the season, leads Cincinnati. And he spreads it out. Cyrus Allen, 34 catches. Caleb Goody, 18 catches. Joe Royers, their starting tight end, he has 22 catches. Then Jeff Caldwell with 20, and Noah Jennings with 15. Cyrus Allen is his favorite target. He has 9 touchdown catches on the season. But they've got some home run hitters. The Caleb Goody kid is a speedster. He averages nearly 20 yards per. He took an 82-yard catch to the house earlier this season. So this is a team whose offense has been clicking at a very high level all year long. Their issue will not be offensively. Of course, we know that Utah's defense is stout. Utah is one of just a few teams in the country that has a top 12 defense and top 12 offense. Let me actually reset that. The only team in the country right now, top 12 offense, top 12 defense. As we know, the Utes are the best rushing team in P4, not just in the Big 12, after curb stomping Colorado a week ago. All of our best guess as of now, unless there's some information I have not heard, is that Devin Dampier will be under center and Bird Ficklin goes back to the backup role. Could that change? Of course, because we know who the head coach is. We will not know until they run out of the tunnel, and we actually won't know until they take their first snap. Because I was on the sideline last week when Colorado was in town, and Devin came out fully dressed, ready to play. He was warming up. And then first snap, it's Bird. And, of course, last week it didn't really matter who was under quarterback. I'm not taking anything away from Bird Ficklin, and I kind of feel that way this week. Only because of the main dynamic that we have talked about all week long is, according to Pro Football Focus, Cincinnati has the worst defensive line in the Big 12 as it pertains to stopping the run. And the University of Utah has the best offensive line in the Big 12 as it pertains to opening up lanes for Devin or Bird or Wayshawn or Nakari or Daniel Bray, who's come on as of late as a result of a great performance against Brigham Young. So my gut tells me this is going to feel a lot like some of the games where the trenches have been a bit of a mismatch. I don't think Utah is going to run over them the way they ran over Colorado or the way they ran over West Virginia or Arizona State. But I am confident that tomorrow night the University of Utah will handle their business, pick up their win, and kind of dispel this narrative that when the lights are at their brightest, this team cannot get it done. That has been the case as of late, 1-5 in their last 6 opportunities with either the Big 12 Big Noon Fox Big Noon Around or College Game Day. And, of course, College Game Day. will be here coming up tomorrow. Shout out to Gavin and Angie. Thank you very much for stopping by. So we have 23 more Smith's gift cards to give away, $10 to Smith's, and 2 tailgate passes to the Smith's tailgate coming up tomorrow right there on Guardsman's Way. It's a really fun way to kind of prep for the game before you do the Ute Walk and head to the stadium. So come on by. 5448 Daybreak Parkway is where we're at. We'll catch our first break of this Friday show. And coming up on the other side, Kyle Bonagura, one of our favorites from ESPN. So keep it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. All right, 3 people officially live here. That's the update. We have 3 people who officially live here, 3 listeners. I know a lot more people live here. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm not trying to be a snob, okay? I'm mostly just caught off guard that I'm in this sprawling suburban community that I honestly didn't even know existed. And our 3rd listener just stopped by, so shout out that guy. 5448 Daybreak Parkway. To give you some some touch points, apparently I'm close to where the Bees play baseball now, and Harriman High School is also out here. So, Porter, I'd like to give you the update. 3 people officially live here. I do know that.
You can update the census. There you go.
Okay.
Let's send him a message.
5448 Daybreak Parkway is where we're at. We're at Smith's. We've got $10 Smith's gift cards. We also have tailgate passes for the Smith's tailgate for the game coming up tomorrow. College game day is in town. Utah is a 10-point favorite over Cincinnati. Our next guest covers college football for ESPN. It's always a pleasure to welcome in Kyle Bonagura on a Friday afternoon. Happy Friday, Kyle. How you doing, man?
Well, I'm a little bit surprised at the 10-point spread in the game. I feel like that feels high, Spence. I don't know.
It feels high, and my advice to my listeners is don't bet on sports, period. And certainly when it comes to a line like this, I wouldn't even touch it, man. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty confident Utah can win the game, but I don't want to be disrespectful to Cincinnati. I mean, they've reeled off 7 straight games, so I feel like Utah will win the game, but I don't know that I love the line as far as them covering.
Yeah, no, it's. I always feel like the line is sometimes set by just the rankings, right, next to the name, and like when you see Cincinnati ranked 17 in the country, they've won 7 in a row at this point. Have looked pretty good. I mean, strength of schedule is obviously probably they haven't done it against the best teams quite yet, but like for them to be a double-digit favorite, just a little bit surprising. But as always, like, do not gamble. It's just like there's for reasons like this. It just doesn't make any sense, and there's probably a reason for that.
Certainly, and I'm sure my listeners at this point are sick of me bringing this up, but what is undeniable is when we look at ESPN.com and dig into the advanced metrics and ignore the AP and the coaches poll. When we look at Conley's stuff, the S&P Plus, he has Utah at 7 in the country, and he has Cincinnati at 23. And if we move over to the FPI, the Football Power Index, Utah is at 11, and Cincinnati is down to 26. So the advanced model stuff still indicate they believe Utah is basically a top 10 football team. What do you make of that?
I mean, that feels a bit high for me. I trust. I mean, usually I trust that stuff. I feel like somewhere around 15 probably is a little bit more justifiable. I do think results matter, right? Like when some of those is like projecting, right? So obviously Utah's losses to BYU and Texas Tech, they were both close, and they were both close late. I mean, Texas Tech got a hand late, but like the FBI, I know, like looks at how the game progresses and like weights it accordingly, right? So it can take into account that it was a close game throughout, where like maybe human voters kind of look at a score and kind of assign value or blame, I guess, based on the final score, which is problematic. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, when Utah was unranked last week in the AP poll, despite having just hammered Arizona State, which was ranked, like it was like, come on, guys, like this Utah is clearly a better team than Arizona State. We saw it on the field pretty decisively the week before. So yeah, I mean it makes for good conversations in terms of trying to sort this out. But yeah, Utah for me in the top 10 is a bit of a stretch with 2 losses.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I understand Bill's model, and I've had him on the show a bunch, and I certainly respect all the work that he's done. But a 34-10 loss to Tech is a 34-10 loss to Tech. You and I have talked about this. That was a 3-quarter rock fight before they pulled away. And, the BYU game, Kyle, and we haven't talked to you since then, I talked about it all week through the context of this is one of the most consequential Utah-BYU games in the history of the rivalry because of the conference implications. Both of them at the time were in the mix for the Big 12 championship. BYU clearly has gone on to stay clean, and they deserve their credit for a 8-0 record and a 5-0 conference record. But, Utah lost the turnover battle 2-0, 7 more penalties for the Utes. They outgained them, more passing yards, more rushing yards. That one is going to sting because I think most people in Salt Lake feel like they let one get away. And, if Utah and BYU played on a neutral field this year 10 times, part of me believes Utah wins 7 games, but BYU gets the credit because they made the plays when they had to.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair, right? And I think that's what some of the advanced models, how they look at things, right? And I think that's practically that's probably makes the most sense in terms of trying to evaluate how good a team is. But I think if it's evaluating, what BYU has accomplished to this point in the season versus Utah, they've got the head-to-head, they've got the undefeated record. So for me, in a human poll, it's impossible to justify having Utah ahead of BYU, even if you think if they played 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, whatever it might be, it would just kind of feel strange to rank them ahead, given the resume. I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure. So before we move forward, since I haven't talked to you since the BYU game, the nature of our job when it comes to Monday morning quarterback and trying to second guess the decisions of coaches sometimes can be a little bit silly. But if you try something that doesn't work, my approach is let's talk about the process there. And coming into the game, Utah led the country in converting on 3rd and 4th down, behind one of the best offensive lines in the Big 12 and in America, quite frankly. But 1 for 5 on 4th down conversions against Brigham Young, and certainly 3 of those decisions, it felt like a field goal was a little bit of a chip shot or points left on the board. And when it comes to the aggressive nature of the way Witt decided to call that, I've had several guests on the program surmise that it felt like that was as a result of maybe this being the last time Witt coaches against BYU. But look, it's so razor thin. If Daniel Bray cuts up field, if Devin Dampier falls forward, they convert a couple of those 4th downs and maybe they score touchdowns, then Witt's a genius. So it's a tough thing, Kyle. But were you surprised at how aggressive Coach Witt was against Brigham Young?
I was, because traditionally this has been a team that's been able to win with special teams, right? And I know they've been kind of down on that side, in that phase of the game in the past couple of years. But it would have felt it felt more in line with his personality to take the points and be safe and do all those things. But I guess the game has evolved, right? And you're seeing this all over college football where teams are choosing to go for it in those situations. And like you said, you could pick any number of moments in that game where one thing happens, a little bit differently. The result is different, right? And they were still, I forget, how late in the game it was that BYU finally went ahead off the top of my head. But I know. I mean, I guess they came back in the 4th. What was it? Remind me. So it was BYU scored twice, Utah scored again late, and by that point it was out of reach, I guess, right?
Yeah, the late touchdown, I mean, give them credit for continuing to fight, and then there was an onside kick that they really couldn't even kick 10 yards. So it was, ultimately the option that Utah had to kick a field goal would have tied the game at 17. And then Parker Kingston scored to make it. So Utah was up 14-10. Parker Kingston scored to put BYU up 3. Utah fails on 4th down. Then Bear Bachmeier runs it in with a run that will live in BYU lore forever because he drug 3 Utah defenders with some help from his offensive line. And then at that point, it was 24-14 with just over 4 minutes left. And even though Utah went down and scored to make it 24-21, when BYU went up 10, I think most Ute fans probably even turned the game off, quite frankly.
Yeah, honestly, I might have too, because at that point, the 10-point deficit, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I was flipping around. I thought that, when Utah went up 14-10, I believe, early in the 4th quarter, it kind of felt like they were they were deserved to be ahead at that point, right? That they had been the better team. BYU was up until that point, for most of the first half, all of the 3rd quarter, and it felt like, okay, kind of everything's right in the world. The team that is playing better has the lead, and then when BYU responded there in the 4th quarter, I was like, okay, we've got a game here, and then it went to 10. At that point the game was out of reach for the most part. So I had basically written it off. But it's 2 years in a row, right, where Utah left the game believing it should have won the game, like justifiably so. It's completely, understandable to feel that way. But, at the end of the day, when you don't get it done, I guess it makes it tougher pill to swallow, especially at the end of Witt's career, possibly end with a couple losses in these games.
Yeah, and then, Kyle, and this has happened twice now, so after the Tech loss, Utah just blew the brakes off of West Virginia. Not a great team, but it was in their building. So Dion rolls into town after Utah loses to BYU. And, it's interesting, historically speaking, Utah-BYU back in the day was played at the end of the year. But last year, once again, played in the middle of the year. And even though BYU beat Utah, kind of the rivalry game, energetic letdown, they lost 2 straight after. And Utah last year, obviously we know the deal. They weren't great and they were injured. They lost as well. But to be able to respond and I was on the sidelines for Utah, Colorado, and it was over, quite frankly, not even at halftime, before halftime. A classic Morgan Scalley game where he just brought pressure. He was able to get to the quarterback, Caden Salter, and they brought in the Ryan Staub kid in the second half when it was basically over. Now, look, this is not the Colorado team of a year ago, but this was a Colorado team that came off a win over Iowa State and then a bye week too. So what stood out most to you about the way Utah bounced back, and what sort of test, if any, is Colorado this year?
Colorado's win against Iowa State really kind of complicates that for me, because I just had no belief that they would be very good this year from the very beginning, and that kind of looked like it was going to be the case. For the most part, I guess they played Georgia Tech tough. That was a decent showing, but other than that, not very impressive. And to say they were impressive in a loss, I guess in a loss speaks, says what it says, right? And so for them to go out and beat Iowa State, you kind of had to recalibrate a little bit and say, okay, maybe this is a team that is turning the corner a bit. But look, it was like you said. I mean, this game wasn't competitive for 2 minutes. I mean, it was very clear from the kickoff that Utah was just going to wreck Colorado, and it was 53-7, I think, and it probably could have been worse, right? I mean, this was in no way competitive at all. And for me, it just it probably says more about Colorado for me than it does Utah. Like I know I expected Utah to win convincingly, but like Colorado didn't even look like it cared, right? And that was the kind of the vibe I was getting. If you're on the sideline, you certainly would have a better idea than I do, but it just didn't look like a team that really cares about winning or being competitive, and it's a lot of individuals there who are kind of in it for themselves, and makes you question. Look, I wrote about it a little bit earlier this week. It was very reminiscent of the Oregon-Colorado game with Dion in year one, right, where it was just completely lopsided over at halftime type of deal. And after the game, Dion says, you better get me now. This is as bad as we're going to be, something to that effect, right? Well, here we are, in year 3, deep in year 3 now, and there's no progress here. They've certainly regressed off of last year's team. Shador and Travis Hunter really carried them and buoyed them into a decent team this year. To take such a significant step back in year 3, kind of says everything you need to know. This is not a team that's going to be competing for Big 12 titles with Dion there. There's just no evidence to indicate anything otherwise.
Okay, I know we kind of already touched on the Cincinnati dynamic as it pertains to the Vegas line, but let's just dig into the game for a little bit. So Brendan Sorsby leads the Big 12 in QBR, and Morgan Scalley was on our midday show, Sean O'Connell's show, earlier today, and we gave a very actually in-detailed breakdown in a way that sometimes coaches don't do on shows, as to not tip their hand, but quick decision maker. He's a dual threat guy. They will be without Evan Pryor, the Ohio State transfer, who's technically their leading running back, but they've got a Wisconsin transfer, the Tawi Walker kid, who leads them in carries, and Sorsby has carried it 69 times himself. But defensively, according to Pro Football Focus, Cincinnati boasts the worst defensive line against the run in the Big 12. Utah's not just the number 1 rushing team in the Big 12, they're the number 4 rushing team, the number 1 rushing team in all of P4. So that, to me, feels like where this game will be won and lost. We anticipate Devin Dampier under center. The availability report, which has clearly been an unserious exercise for Witt and his staff, did not even have him on it. So that kind of feels like where this game is going to be decided, but I don't want to disrespect the Cincinnati offense that's really been very high level all year long. How do you think it plays out coming up tomorrow night at 8:15 here in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've watched a lot of Cincinnati this year, but look, you can look at the numbers and look, they're averaging a lot of yards per carry, yards per attempt. It's an impressive offense. They've won 7 in a row, so a lot to like. They're defensively not giving up big numbers in the last few weeks, certainly. So a lot to like, just very surface level with Cincinnati, right? But like the stat that you pointed out, I think when Utah struggled against BYU and Texas Tech, it came, Texas Tech for sure, BYU to an extent as well. Like, their offensive line just didn't play very well. And it was, you got to give credit to the opposing D-lines and their front sevens. With Cincinnati being as kind of porous as it is up front defensively, that feels like it plays right into Utah's strength. And anytime where Utah is able to have the edge up front there, it's been pretty convincing, right? And so, yeah, again, I said it earlier, 10 feels high for me. I think Utah's going to win the game. But look, this should be competitive. I mean, it's a ranked battle, and there's a lot to play for. Cincinnati it certainly feels like it's in the spot at 5-0 in the conference to make a run at the title game, and this is one that they probably got to get there.
Now, Utah has to win out and get a lot of luck on their side, and as you remember, Kyle, about 3 years ago, when you were coming on the show to talk Pac-12, Utah needed like 7 things to happen over the final 2 weeks or whatever to win the Pac-12, and they all happened. So we're holding out a little hope here. But what they're going to have to hope is that Texas Tech gets got a couple times, and maybe BYU has 3 losses on their schedule. I'm not sure that I see that. But let me ask you about what you think could happen coming up for Tech this weekend as they're at K-State. Now, K-State's not the team that we thought they might be to start the year, but it's not a bad football team, and it is a road test for Texas Tech against Kansas State in Manhattan. And then we'll get to the BYU portion, but do you think K-State will at least provide some pushback against Tech this weekend?
I don't see it.
Yep.
And I didn't see it with ASU either, and ASU beat Texas Tech. That one for me was among the most surprising results in the conference this year, so take that for what it's worth. I just don't think, but again, I don't think Kansas State's ceiling is as high as Arizona State's ceiling. So for me, it would be an even bigger surprise if they're able to hang with Tech. It feels like such an outlier that, one of those games for Tech, the Arizona State loss I'm talking about, where they kind of needed a wake up call. It felt like, hey, here's a team that is reading the press clippings, so to speak, and kind of feels invincible. And maybe there was some, just didn't put everything into it the way they needed to prepare for a well-coached team. So yeah, look, I don't think this is going to be much of a hurdle for Texas Tech. And as you kind of look at all the things that have to happen, look, last year it was there were several 2-loss teams in the conference, so I think it's Utah's got to proceed like they're still in the mix. But given who the other teams play, given BYU and Cincinnati both are still undefeated, a lot, you said, a lot would have to happen. So I certainly don't expect them to be there in the end, but at the same time, there's plenty of evidence to show that it's certainly nowhere close to being over.
Texas Tech a 7.5-point favorite, even though they're on the road. So we'll see. Let's move over now to the BYU side of things, where, look, as we already outlined, we have this thing called the scoreboard in college football. So even though some of the advanced metrics still don't love BYU, and look, man, I'm watching the game last week against Iowa State, and they go down 24-10. L.J. Martin leaves the game, and I'm like, wow, okay, the rivalry hangover might catch him again. And it's this confluence of, Rocco Becht missing 3 wide receivers wide open in the end zone, a wide receiver completely dropping a pass in the end zone, a muffed punt, the likes I've never seen, and then BYU once again just doing what they had to do when their backs were against the wall. I'm not saying they're a bad football team. They're very much not. They're 19-2 in their last 21. But I feel like it's only fair to say they've got something going on down there where they're both good and extremely lucky. They're on a bye week, and then they see Tech. Then after that, it's home against TCU. Then they're at Cincinnati and home against UCF. So there's some potential roadblocks to finish off the year for Kalani and his boys down south. But what do you make of them? How good are they? They're 8-0 and they're 5-0 in conference with a freshman quarterback who just grows week after week.
Yeah, you kind of highlighted kind of have very similar thoughts that I have, and I wrote about this not this week, but the week before. They play a lot of close games against teams that are not very good, or just okay, right? Colorado being one of them. Close game against Colorado. Close game against Arizona. The game against Arizona was over too. They lost against Arizona. They're down in the fourth against Utah. Iowa State, I watched a little bit early when they were still behind. I was like, well, they're not coming back from that. And of course, they did. So they keep playing these close games where where you can have written them off at various points of the game. But to their credit, there's like something about them where they're not wired in a way to give up, right? There's not, and maybe that's oversimplifying things to a degree, but I think what I wrote a couple weeks ago, that there just feels like there's like this winning DNA that can't really be explained inside the building right now, where they just find a way to pull these things out. It was very similar last year, right, where they had a very similar start to the year. They dropped the 2 games late. There was, kept them out of the title game. It sets up to have a very similar story to a year ago. They do feel, what's concerning is, it feels like they play to the level of their competition every week, and I think that'll be the case against Texas Tech. Like, I think that'll be a good game. I just think they're built that way to get up for whatever the moment is, but at the same time, when they're winning games, they're not overly impressive, and I think that's the part you were touching on too, is that even while they're winning, they're not doing it in such an impressive fashion that you're like, oh, this is a team that we gotta keep an eye on. But when Utah blew the doors off Arizona State, you're like, okay, this is a team to watch. Same thing against UCLA early in the year, right? It was such a decisive victory that you're like, okay, this team's for real. I mean, again, like against Colorado, it was so lopsided. You're like, wow, this is what this team can be. But then they don't have the consistency, right? Now you're playing a close game against BYU, and maybe if you're in that tight game, you're not built for those moments because you haven't really been in them consistently. And so I think there's something to that, and BYU has that part of it figured out.
All right, before I set you loose, I'm going to throw a scenario at you, and I'm going to see if I can unpack this appropriately and correctly and see if you can understand where I'm going. Most of the guests I've had on, and I actually asked you a few weeks ago, if I reduced it to a simple question, it would be, is there any way the Big 12 gets 2 teams in the CFP? But if we play this exercise for a minute, let's say BYU goes and beats Texas Tech. They go and beat Texas Tech next week, and then they are able to stay clean the rest of the way, and they enter the Big 12 championship game as an undefeated team, beating Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati, and UCF. And let's say Texas Tech is able to enter that situation. Houston has this weird way that they could backdoor their way into it. But let's say Texas Tech advances to the Big 12 championship game with 2 losses, one of them being BYU. And then they beat BYU in the Big 12 championship game, and BYU has 1 loss to Tech in the Big 12 championship game. In that scenario, do Tech and BYU get in?
I would think there's a really good chance that they would get in because I think you have to take the automatic teams out of the equation, right? So Texas Tech's off to the side they're in. They're not going to be measured, right? And it's not going to be like, oh, we've accounted for the Big 12. Like, that doesn't matter. Now you're looking at a 12-1 team, and a 12-1 team that if they were to in the rankings by that point, they would have risen to, I have to imagine they would be 3 or 4 if they're 12-0. They would be somewhere in that range. And so then they would have to fall so far off of 1 loss to a team that is generally regarded as a very good team. Like, Texas Tech has the respect, I think, of college football right now. I mean, I think a lot of the NIL stuff factors into that, and also they're just a good team. And so and they would have the win against them, right? So if you go 1-1 against a team, and the game happens and your loss happens in the title game, that'd be a tough way to get excluded from the playoff. So my gut instinct would be to say that they're in. I think you always have to couch these things with you would have to look to see who else is where and all of those things. But I think that's the scenario where the Big 12 gets to, is that you have a one-loss or or an undefeated or maybe a one-loss team. It'll be interesting to even see what it would look like if Texas Tech is the team, right? And they go say Texas Tech is 11-1, and they're 11-1 and they lose and they've got 2 losses. I don't know. There's a couple other scenarios, but yeah, I think if the favorite loses the title game is where the 2 team possibilities are possible. But I think if the favorite wins the title game, it's a wonder.
It's an impossible exercise to unpack without sounding like you're schizophrenic. So I appreciate you entertaining the situation, Kyle. Hey, I appreciate your time on a Friday. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. We'll chat soon, okay?
All right. Thanks. See ya.
Kyle Barnagura from ESPN. Always appreciate his time. All right, fall is here. Winter is on the way. I want to tell you about my friends at Advanced Window Products, which is Utah's #1 window replacement company, with their fall special offer right now where you get $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. So if you're starting to notice that your house is just cold, even though you have your heat up, it's probably because of your windows and you're just wasting a lot of money. You can save on energy bills with the most energy-efficient windows around. Just call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindows.com. $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. Advanced Window Products, building, installing, and guaranteeing the best windows in Utah. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. We have had a tremendous amount of listeners show up. We actually had a line earlier. And you know what? I just might move to Daybreak. We don't have a line in Salt Lake. We have more listeners rolling by. 5448 Daybreak Parkway. We've got Smith's gift cards, $10 Smith gift cards. We've got tailgate passes given away as well. So 5448 Daybreak Parkway. Come on by and say hi. We'll catch a break and bring in Sam Bruckhouse coming up on the other side. Stanford Steve will join us. Dave McMiniman will join us. Dave Bartu will join us too. We have a busy Friday show, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Porter, we have an update. The majority of the state has clearly relocated around wherever I am at Smith's. We have had more listeners stop by in 1 hour than I've had in my last 3 or 4 Smith's Salt Lake City remotes.
That's what I'm talking about.
I need to eat a little crow. I apologize to my friends out here in wherever.
Yeah. It sounds like maybe we need to get out of some baseball games.
Well, you know what? I think I just might move to Daybreak. I think I'm going to leave my abode up by campus and just move to Daybreak because people out here are nice to me and they like me, so I'm leaving. Yeah. All right, we're going to bring in Stanford Steve. College game day is in town, but it's time for our weekly hit with one of our favorites, Sam Bruckhouse from Sumer Sports. Sam, happy Friday, buddy. How we doing?
Happy Friday. Porter's playing you in with please, please, please. Give me what I want. And the Jets, they finally gave it to us. We got a victory. We got some points. The defense played really bad, but, man, what a game.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Shouldn't I just hope that they lose every game, though, Sam? Like, what's the point of winning anything this year?
Look, I don't know, but there's a spark in New Jersey, Spence, and I think that this may be the beginning of something beautiful. But then again, it's still the New York Jets.
Well said. I'll just ask you one follow-up. It feels like Justin Fields has to keep that job, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. When he is able to lock in on that middle-of-the-field passing game, which we've talked about being kind of the three-pointer of the NFL, it's hard to do. It's a little harder to do, but if you're able to do it, it's quite efficient. When he locks in on that offense has a high ceiling. The problem is that floor gets low, particularly when he holds on to the ball too much. We saw the mobility come in play. And we also saw, an excellent coaching and excellent research decision from them to go 4-2 down 8. That ends up being the difference in that game. So altogether, I like what I saw. The defense got to shape up a little bit. They end up trading Michael Carter to the Eagles this week, so that it seems that they're still retooling for next year. But there's a glimmer of hope, and especially midseason, that's what you need for a rebuilding franchise.
I mostly want to talk pro football with you today, Sam, but I will ask you your opinion on what we could see tomorrow night. Game day is in town. Utah is a 10-point favorite against Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby is the number 1 quarterback in the conference in QBR. We think it will be Devin Dampier after Bert Ficklin led Utah to a pretty dominant win over Colorado a week ago. But my advice to my listeners is don't gamble on sports, but certainly that line feels pretty big for a top 25 matchup. What do you think happens tomorrow night in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I think this is a strange weakness-on-weakness game. Rarely do you get that. Typically it'll be a strength-on-strength, but that offense is rocking and rolling at Cincinnati. They are now kind of an upset pick now that they're sitting high up in the rankings to be a Big 12 contender with people like Houston, who we've talked about several times. Obviously, Utah still kind of in the mix to a certain degree, BYU. But I think that it really comes down to if the Cincinnati Bearcats can stop that successful play-by-play attack, moving the ball that Kyle Whittingham likes to have. They have a pretty poor defensive success rate this year, and then you look at the flip side of the ball, that they use the run to open up the pass. They use the pass to open up the run, and the Utes have struggled a little bit in the run game defensively this year. So whoever is able to take advantage of those weaknesses, whether it's the Utes being able to play ball control offense, move the ball down the field behind their strong offensive line, and ultimately kind of take advantage of the game and set the game script. Or on the flip side, if you're seeing explosive runs from Cincinnati, I think that means they take the cake. Those are the two matchups really to watch in this game.
One more college follow-up real quick. You cannot take records off the table. So the unbeaten teams are the unbeaten teams, and that would be BYU and, of course, Cincinnati. But whether it's metrics or the games that you've watched, who's the best team in this conference this year, Sam?
I think in the Big 12 conference, it's got to be Texas Tech. They have the best talent. A weird loss a couple weeks ago, but they have big wins, and they're able to just smoke teams when they play their best. So I think it got to be Texas Tech.
Fair enough. All right. What are you willing to say about the Ravens now that Lamar is back? The schedule is pretty favorable, and obviously he makes a huge difference. They undressed the Dolphins last night. I think I read that only 6 teams since the merger have made the playoffs after starting 2-5, but can Baltimore be the 7th?
Yeah, they're in the same scenario that the Cincinnati Bengals were in last year, and quite frankly facing almost exactly the same schedule as well. that offense is incredible, and it's been incredible since Lamar Jackson has been there. It is supercharged by the fact that they have Derrick Henry, who had another big run last night. When Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews are playing well, that's a juggernaut of an offense behind their offensive line as well. It's going to come down to defense, which would look substantially better against a sneakily good Miami offense, primarily because Mike McDaniel, who seems to be keeping on in Miami, at least for now, rest of the season, despite the firing of Chris Greer this morning. That offense is orchestrated well, and they were able to shut it down. And so this was the case for the Ravens last year, as it was the case for the Bengals last year. The Bengals weren't able to figure out their defense as the year went on. The Ravens were able to. It's a lot later on in the season, but that's the true question for this team. Can the defense hold, particularly when playing guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and some of the other good wide receivers on their schedule? And I think that's really the question. The offense is going to be there. The offense is going to be playing at a top of the league rate. And so if the defense can hold, I think they can sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, you referenced the fact that McDaniel's going to keep his job through the end of the year, but you kind of read that as like, yeah, we just don't really want to make a change, and chances are he's going to be out after the end of the year. I mean, I guess stranger things have happened. I was talking about this earlier, Sam. I mean, and you would be able to break this down better than I would. It feels like he's very well regarded and highly respected in football circles. And when he took the job, there were things early on, like didn't they hang like 70 on Denver or something?
Right.
And obviously it hasn't worked out for a myriad of reasons. This feels like it could be a scenario where, okay, first-time head coach loses a job and going to get another chance, and there's a good chance that second chance might look a lot better than the first. What do you think both the present and the future holds for McDaniel?
Spence, I'm an analyst by trade, and I very rarely have hot takes, and I very rarely plant flags because the data and the context can change at any time. But I'm gonna plant a flag on this. The Miami Dolphins should not fire Mike McDaniel, and here's why. Right now, they're one of the worst teams in the league in terms of basically any metric, except their offense is still hanging on somehow to a pretty efficient offense. They're now in the bottom half of the league, primarily due to some pretty brutal turnovers in the last couple games by Tua Tagovailoa. But you think about a quarterback going into a situation. You mentioned how well regarded this offense, basically as much as he's been there, if they've had any semblance of quarterback play, which frankly this year they haven't had from Tua, this has been a top 10 offense, basically purely behind the designs of Mike McDaniel, and that is a perfect scenario for a rookie quarterback. You think of Mendoza, you think of Ty Simpson. You can even slot in more athletic but rawer guys like Lenore Sellers if he ends up going out. And it's just a scenario where you don't want to switch coaches, and he's probably the best guy to build an offense around a rookie quarterback. They should not fire him unless there is truly atrocious off-the-field stuff going on. It seems like they've ironed some of those kinks out. They're still getting booed in their own stadium, but you literally can't have a better coach, a better play designer, a better developer. He turned Tua into a Pro Bowl $35-45 million quarterback. I mean, that's exactly what you want when you get to a rookie quarterback, and it just doesn't make sense to bring in a first-time head coach who may be play calling for the first time if you have a rookie quarterback. I think he should retain his job for that reason only.
Well, like I said, you'd be able to break it down better than I would. I know a lot of people that kind of exist in your ecosystem think he's very, very bright. So I like that. So I referenced the Broncos in context of them getting 70 hung on them by the Dolphins, but we exist in this region where, because we don't have an NFL team in Salt Lake, we just have a ton of Broncos fans, and they've run off 5 straight, and it feels like the Bo Nix, Sean Payton thing is very much real. How real is this streak, and what do you anticipate the rest of the way?
Spence, this is a top 10 defense, and this is a top 10 offense, and that's really the difference this year. Is Bo Nix has been able to limit those negative plays, but they've been able to add another portion to this offense, which is the run game. We already knew that McGlinchey and Bowles and Miners were extremely high-level players. They just couldn't get it going last year for whatever reason, but with Javonte Williams, who is performing very well, was probably a little banged up, a little injured. But they figured it out this year. They got 3 backs that are performing pretty well. You got guys in the passing game contributing as well. It's still going to come down as the season breaks down, as they continue to face that difficult AFC West opponents, the Chargers and the Chiefs. it's going to come down to Bo Nix. If he turns into Auburn Bo Nix again and starts turning the ball over, taking negative plays, then it's not going to look good for the offense. But he has been able to kind of flip the narrative from what it was the first 2 or 3 games. Now his sack rate is well close to 0. I think he's first or second in sack rate this year amongst. He just doesn't take negative plays. He's been able to spin it a little bit. He makes 2 or 3 big plays a game and limits those turnovers, and I think that's the key to success. I think Sean Payton and him have kind of gotten on the same page, and that's the reason why we're seeing some good stuff from the Broncos.
Now, of course, in that division, you never ignore the Chiefs based off of what they've done as of late. Do you still feel like the AFC West goes through Kansas City, or has Denver shown you enough?
Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team in the league. And you can look at their record, and it looks a little funky. You go look at their point differential. This is like a plus 60, plus 70 team, far and away near the top of point differential. Basically, only the Colts are in their region. I think this is the best team in the league. I think their defense is slightly better than the Colts, and I think their offense is more proven than the Colts. And I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be the MVP. He's the only quarterback that's really in the top 5 of passing EPA in total and rushing EPA. That means that he's making big-time plays in big-time positions, both with his arm and with his leg. You add in Rashee Rice, you add in Andy Reid, who out of nowhere has started going for 4th downs this year, which is extremely scary for the league, given that Patrick Mahomes is the best at creating with his legs on 3rd and 4th down. And so all that comes together. I think they're the best team in the league. By far, they should be the Super Bowl favorites.
So here we go again, with the Kansas City Chiefs back to where they typically are. I want you to elaborate a little bit more on exactly how they seem to do this, because they start the year off with 2 L's, and you reference some of the injuries or suspensions they have, and Rashee is obviously a tier 1 guy. I mean, he makes a lot of difference, and win a couple, good win against the Ravens. I don't remember if Lamar played in that one, but then they lose to the Jags, so they run off 3 straight. And to your point, now everybody is talking about them as potentially the team that, as you just referenced, should be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Is it easy to talk about coaching quarterback, or is it deeper than that? Why do they keep finding this secret sauce?
Yeah, I think the 3 major changes this year is, number 1, getting Rashee Rice and getting Xavier Worthy back healthy, and Travis Kelce had a great game in this past week. Getting that full deck of cards back, and you add in a guy like Brashard Smith, and you get some good play from your left side of your line, even going down into the depth. With the personal reasons being out, with Simmons being out on the left side, you add in some depth, and they're able to play pretty well. And I think personnel is a key reason. They just have better personnel than they did last year. But you look at Patrick Mahomes, and frankly, he's changed his game a little bit. He's scrambling a little bit more. And in the past, we saw his scramble and sack rates maintained until about last year. Last year, he took a lot more sacks, which that was his superpower going into last year. No one could really explain why it went up so much. This year, he adjusted his game. He's not necessarily doing it with just the hot reads and just the quick passes that people have complained quite a bit about, frankly, in the last couple of years. He's doing it with his legs. And so as a result, he's kind of added another dimension to his game. He was already a scary scrambler to begin with, but he's doing it a little bit more, and that's how he's avoiding sacks now. So there is a slight change there. And then, like I said, the addition of quality 4th down decision-making can basically add 2 to 3 drives and maybe a point or 2 of EPA per play a game to that. That's basically putting a field goal on the board if they convert 2 or 3 4th downs. And what better person do you want with their ball with the ball in their hand than Patrick Mahomes on 4th down? So that's a massive, massive coaching change that they made. So I think it's the same old tricks. But Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have added a club to their bag, and I think that's what has launched them in advance of the kind of putting along, but still being a very good team that we've seen in the past couple of years.
So we move over to what I find to be one of the most fascinating, I'll call it a rivalry, as the Chiefs and the Bills have this really interesting dynamic where the Bills have beat them 4 straight times in the regular season, but the Chiefs have beat them 4 straight times in the playoffs. Looks like Kansas City is getting about 2 points, 1.5 to 2 points on the road. What are you expecting to see in what may be the marquee matchup of the weekend when the Chiefs and the Bills do battle?
I think this is going to be true matchup football. And I don't want to put the red flag up yet, but Josh Allen hasn't really done a ton this year. He hasn't had to do a ton. They've just steamrolled some teams behind their offensive line and running game. Obviously had that excellent Ravens game at the beginning of the year, but overall he's having kind of an average star level quarterback season. Wouldn't call it an MVP season thus far by any hook or crook. So that's something to watch out on because Steve Spagnuolo will challenge him in this game. But I think the true matchup and the true thing to watch is that defensive backfield of the Bills, which has struggled but has played well as of late against some lesser competition. The Chiefs are going to use motion. They're going to hand the ball off to guys like Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. They're going to get the matchups they want. If the Bills secondary can't win those matchups, then I think the Chiefs being the favorite makes a lot of sense to me.
Let's stay in the AFC East, where, as much as it pains me to say it, they've won 5 straight. They're 6-2. Can the Patriots keep this rolling, and can they actually win the division?
Yeah, I mean, this is old school football from the Patriots, which is fun to have back in Boston. Obviously, not great for you as a Jets fan, Spence, but they're playing behind their offensive line. They have Morgan Moses, who is playing really well. They have Mike Onwenu, who is playing really well. They have Will Campbell, who struggled, as most do, against Myles Garrett, but received some compliments from him. Myles Garrett having 5 sacks against him. But that's a tough matchup, and Myles Garrett at this point is performing extremely well. But they are playing behind their offensive line, and that's the reason why Drake May is able to create. You get some improved play from Kayshon Boutte. You get some great play from Stephon Diggs, who is having a resurgent year, and it adds to success on offense. So the real question is, can that defense remain healthy and support that offense, and are we going to see Drake May go rogue a little bit this year? But I think this is a real team, and I think they're probably, a real challenger to win like a wild card game or a round 1 game.
Let me go over to the NFC because it felt like the Commanders were kind of this in vogue pick to, if you didn't want to pick the Eagles, or if you didn't want to pick, one of the favorites, the Lions or what have you. I think a lot of people thought the Commanders were kind of an in vogue pick. Now, they get Jaden Daniels back. They have lost 3 straight. I'll ask you the same question in the same way I kind of asked you about the Ravens. If Daniels can stay healthy, is this the team that can kind of get back in the mix?
It's really tough, and here's why it's really tough, Spence. They made a marked decision to go with an older team and put veterans on the defense and veterans around Jaden Daniels, who has been banged up, and thus you're playing with Marcus Mariota, who hasn't played terribly, but obviously it hasn't looked as good as you can get with Jaden. And that's kind of bit him in the butt. Terry McLaurin struggled with injuries. Debo Samuel struggled with injuries. You get Eckler getting hurt. You get multiple names on the defense being hurt or not playing up to snuff. We haven't really heard Von Miller's name a lot this year. And that's basically the gamble you made, and the gamble did not necessarily pay off. But they're an extremely well-coached team. They have a good quarterback, and if the whole deck is there, the offensive line has played pretty good. They've been able to get the running game off a little bit. So I wouldn't consider them like a true Super Bowl contender right now, but they can definitely make a run.
We like to cheer for our local players, and Jordan Love, of course, after 3 years behind Aaron Rodgers, has been the starting quarterback in Green Bay for a few years. And and we already talked about this, after the Parsons trade, I actually thought that they were undervalued as it pertains to being one of the favorites to win the whole thing. They've run off 3 straight. It could be a little smoke and mirrors because it's Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers, but they're sitting there 5-1-1. Do you feel like they've kind of recaptured some things after the loss to Cleveland and the tie to Dallas?
Yeah, I think it's still going to come down to that defense. What we've said is that the offense has progressed this year. You see Jordan Love be able to make some better plays while negating negative plays. Right now he's sitting atop the league in EPA per play. He's really running this offense as it should be run. And the defense is still the weakness, but the defense has Michael Parsons. And so when you have Michael Parsons chasing down an aging Aaron Rodgers, that's a matchup you really like. And as a result, they've been able to take advantage of some teams. It's so tough in the NFC North. I still think I like the Lions a little bit more, especially if their defense and Kelvin Shepard is going to continue coaching so well. I just think that team has more clubs in the bag. But, man, they look good. And I think that it's a fair statement that the Eagles, the Packers, and the Lions are the true class of the NFC, and that one of those 3 should be the favorites. I think they're all pretty tight right now. They all have some pretty glaring weaknesses, depending on how you look at it. But they're all coming together at the right time and doing what they want to do, inflicting dominance upon their opponents. And I think that's why those three are the true top class of the NFC, probably the true top class outside of the Chiefs as well in the league in whole.
Who do you like in the NFC West? I mean, we just got word that Brock Purdy's going to miss another game. Mac Jones will get the start, and he's been fine, and we know that Kyle can coach up quarterbacks. I don't know that the Cardinals will have anything to say about it, even though it looks like Kyler's going to get back. But are you believing in Seattle? Are you still on that Rams train? Who do you like in the NFC West?
I think you got to believe in the Rams as it stands right now. They just have a top level of talent and a proven level of talent on both sides of the ball that you don't necessarily have from the Seahawks just yet. And you have Sean McVay, who you know is going to put Puka in the right place. He should be playing this week, is going to put Devontae in the right place, is going to put Kyron Williams in the right place. You look at Seattle, and I really like what they're doing. They have a true plan. This week on the Sumer Sports Show, we investigated the rise of 12 personnel and their usage of it in particular. And we just, if you go check us out at Sumer Sports on social media, we just clipped a portion of that of our film expert, Sean Syed, talking about how they use it. Basically, what they want to do at this point is they know that they're not the greatest run-blocking team on earth. In fact, probably their best run blocker at the position is A.J. Barner, the tight end, who has had an excellent, outstanding year, both in the receiving game as a red zone receiver and particularly as a run-blocking weapon. But you see what they want to do, and really they're going to run regardless. I still think they're running a little bit too much, but they're doing it to open up these big passing shot plays, which Sam Darnold and JSN have been able to hook up on, and it's basically doubled their efficiency in the passing game. And if they continue to do that, I do believe that structurally that is a good way to win, particularly if you don't necessarily trust 100% in Sam Darnold, and their defense is just maulers. They got big guys up front. They got Nick Emenwari, who is basically playing the Kyle Hamilton role for Mike McDonald. There's a lot to like on that defensive side of the ball. So I trust the Rams a little bit more, but I think that the Seahawks might have a higher ceiling.
Is it just me? I mean, look, I know every weekend of NFL football is fun for a number of different reasons, but outside of the Chiefs and Bills, like, are there aren't a lot of great games this weekend. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was. Look, I love every slate. I love football, and something pops up. I mean, if you would have told me that the Bengals and the Jets this past week was going to be the best game, I don't think I would have believed you, especially given that I went to the Panthers and Jets game the week before, and it was not. Look, I enjoyed it. It wasn't the most watchable game of all time if I was sitting in front of a television. So I think the NFL gives you something every single week, but I do think there's probably only that one marquee matchup. But, you can learn a lot from all these matchups, especially when there's some weirder games out there. So I do think Chiefs-Bills is the marquee one, but we'll see what happens in some of these other games.
All right, Sam, before I set you loose, tell our listeners about Sumer Brain and where they can go get all your work.
Yeah, so go check us out on Sumer Brain, sumersports.com/Sumer Brain. That's SUMER, sumersports.com/Sumer Brain, spelled the same way. We just dropped the fantasy tool. If you're going into the playoffs, we're getting around trade deadline season, just go ahead and ask it. You don't have to do all this research. You don't have to go. We have all of our proprietary research in there, and it will provide you with insights on what you should do with your fantasy team, so go check that out.
Sam, you're the man. Good insight as always. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games, and we'll chat soon. Sam Bruckhouse, Sumer Sports, at Sam Bruckhouse is where you find him on social media. We're going to bring in Stanford Steve coming up in a little bit. Of course, College Game Day is in town. We're live today at the most popular Smiths in the history of the world, apparently. 5448 Daybreak Parkway. We still have some Smiths gift cards and some tailgate passes, but we don't have near as many as we did to start the show. That's because apparently a lot of people live here and they like Smiths. We'd love to meet you. A lot of good listeners out here. 5448 Daybreak Parkway is where you find us. We're set up by the Starbucks. Before we catch a break, I'm not sure if you've heard. Do you have YouTube TV? Well, good luck watching like zero football this weekend. Now, good news. You can make the switch. You can do it today. And actually, it will be a better setup for you. As somebody who's tried all the other platforms, if you don't have Dish as a sports fan, you're doing it wrong. So call right now, 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Yeah, on top of this, listen, there's a brand new promotion. And, guys, I've actually dove into this offer, and it is fantastic. Guys, no extra fees, no extra charges. It's just a flat price of $89 a month. That includes the DVR fee, everything, so you're all set up with that. That'll get you all the channels that you need. This is a very competitive price, and it's also locked in that it's not going to change for the next 2 years. Call us up. We can get you installed tomorrow, and so you can watch the Utes play. This is an opportunity that you want to take advantage and you don't want to go without. We can help you, and we'll throw in dinner at JCW's, get you the very best price guarantee, and we can also help with the internet. Call us today. Take advantage of this deal. Don't go without. Don't put up with your provider not giving you the content you want. We can get you covered with that, plus little extras on top of everything. Plus the NFL Red Zone, we'll throw in that for the rest of the season, and Showtime and Paramount Plus. But you got to call right now, 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros, live today at Smith's at 5448 Daybreak Parkway. Come on by and say hi if there's any of you left, because we've had a tremendous amount of traffic, which we appreciate. Of course, it's our Friday tailgate show that we do every Friday before every Utah football home game. We have $10 Smith's gift cards. We have some tailgate passes for you guys as well. Grab a gift card, go do a little shopping, get ready for the tailgate, and we'll say goodnight at 6. More coming up on the other side of a Friday edition of The Drive, and it's good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700. All right, back to football in just a little bit. Stanford Steve from College Game Day will join us. Fun conversations always with Steve. Loves the Utes in town and cover them for ESPN. We'll do a little hoops with Dave McMiniman, college football later with Dave Bartu. But the PGA Tour descended upon our state not too long ago down to the Black Desert Resort for the Bank of Utah Championship. Quick little golf hit with our guy Paul Pugmar on a Friday. Hello, Paul. Happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Doing great, Spencer. It's a beautiful day. How come we're not golfing?
Well, some of us have to work, Paul. Unfortunately, you got to do a little radio. Yeah. I did hit some balls earlier today at Bonneville, so I enjoyed that. I'm going to try to get out this weekend because the cold weather is creeping up. But Michael Brennan, I don't know much about this young man, but wow, was he impressive. He won the Bank of Utah Championship. Give me your thoughts.
He was terribly impressive, and you're entirely justified to not know much about him coming in. I mean, holy cow, he was a sponsor's invite. He had no status, no standing, no qualification to be there. But at the tail end of the Americas Tour, the PGA Tour Americas, which is equivalent to AAA in a baseball analogy. Pardon me, I meant to say AA. Korn Ferry's triple, but America's Tour, AA baseball. He won 3 of the last 4 tournaments at the end of the year on the America's Tour. He was on a heater, really had established himself as a dominant player. He won the year-long points on the America's Tour because of that strong finish. And from that, the sponsors gave him an invitation to come and play at Black Desert. And he made the most of it. Holy cow. He goes out there and just spanks everybody. We're all justified in not knowing much about him going in. I didn't. But we need to pay attention now. I think this guy will have sticking power.
So from what I read, and I followed along, man, did that course pop on TV. It must have been really nice to be there down in person. He was just great off the tee, right? I mean, strokes gained, with his driver. That's kind of where he shined. Is that fair?
Totally. And so, let's put some context on it. Black Desert has these fairways that measure wide and look inviting. But the thing is, if you miss the fairway by a step, you might be taking a drop, looking for your ball and not finding it. It is severe just off the fairway. Last year, at the inaugural Bank of Utah Championship at Black Desert, the field set an all-time PGA Tour record for most penalty shots on the week with 201. It's just a crazy town number. But they didn't have as many this year. They're figuring out where not to take aggressive lines. But the point is, you can just barely miss, and it's extremely costly. But Brennan did not miss. He only actually missed 4 fairways the entire week out of 72 holes. It was a really superb driving performance.
Paul, we got to set you loose, so let's tease the show tomorrow. What's coming up on Utah Golf Radio?
We're going to be doing a recap and revisit some highlights from Black Desert, and we will be talking with we're trying to put together a surprise for something really cool that might involve Sir Nick Faldo. If not this week, then next week. But let me tease that.
Excellent stuff, Paul. Thank you for the time. Have a good show tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
All right, we're live today at Smith's, 5448 Daybreak Parkway. We broke there a little early with Paul because we're going to bring in Stanford Steve Coughlin from ESPN. You probably know him from the Van Pelt stuff, SVP. He's a main staple on College Game Day, hosts Stanford Steve and the Bear. He is in town, of course, for the big game coming up tomorrow night at 8:15 here in Salt Lake City. Don't forget our pregame coverage will begin at 4:15 with Porter Larson and Trevor Riley. We will get you ready for kickoff. Then Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and, of course, Stevenson Sylvester will stop by as well. But it's a big day whenever College Game Day is in town. I want to remind you guys, if you're a Utah student, you will need your Utah ID card to gain access to President's Circle, which is where College Game Day is set up. I think they started on Tuesday of this week because I live right by campus, and as I was driving home from work, I think I saw some barricades up on President's Circle as early as Tuesday. And if you want to get going early, their coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. Of course, kickoff for the game isn't until 8:15, and Utah finds themselves as a 10-point favorite with most sports books. And when it comes to a couple of others, they're a 10.5-point favorite. The line opened up at 5.5, and it shot up very, very quickly. A lot of the money is coming in on Cincinnati. As I continue to talk about, A, don't bet on sports. B, this is a line that feels a little bit dicey, as Cincinnati has won 7 straight games since opening their season with a loss to Nebraska. Our next guest, part of the game day coverage, I remember him from the SVP and Rosillo days, Stanford Steve Coughlin on a Friday afternoon. Steve, happy Friday, buddy. How we doing?
We're doing great. We just got done with our meeting. We taped College Football Live out at the set, and we just got done singing happy birthday to Coach Saban. Today's his birthday. So we're fired up to be back here. 2 years ago, we were here for Halloween weekend, and we're here again. Absolutely fired up. I love what I've seen from these two teams, coming into this game. And I picked Utah to win the conference at the beginning of the year, and this is a monster step as the percentages change a lot if they were not able to get this one home.
Certainly, and, it's interesting that you bring that up because, wins and losses are wins and losses, and you can't run away from results. But the advanced metrics that you guys do on ESPN, whether it's S&P Plus or FPI, essentially still believe that Utah is like a top 10 football team. Do you, Steve, still believe Utah lives in that kind of that cul-de-sac?
I would say more to the 10 to 15, Spence. Like, I've won in the biggest moments when I've seen Whittingham teams produce wins and make the plays. I haven't seen that from this group. There was plenty of chances against Texas Tech, plenty of chances against BYU, and then to know that you still have a chance in this playoff era, there's still room for improvement. Devin, doesn't play last week, and they rally around, and everybody plays a flawless game, and they take care of Colorado early, so now you get ready for the next chance. It sounds like Devin's going to be able to give it a go. I think Utah fans, would admit they would have thought they would have seen more from Devin at this point. But you still, in this, all you want is opportunity, and the Utes still have it tomorrow. So that's the way I would be looking at it if I was a Utah fan.
So this line has been very interesting, Steve. As you know, it opened up at 5.5, and it shot up fast, and it has settled right now. Utah favored by 10. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. Just seeing where the money is, and then the line going opposite. That always puts your antennas up if you follow this stuff, because it doesn't make sense. And then obviously the injury that Cincinnati has at running back, but they play a 2 running back system, so I don't find that a major factor. I do look at the idea of what Cincinnati has done on the road. They haven't gone anywhere close to a home field advantage of the opponent as they're walking into tomorrow night. You factor that with time of kick. Being an East Coast team, I was trying to rack my head today talking to local media here. I believe Cincinnati and UCF are the only Big 12 teams in the Eastern time zone, if that sounds right. So we haven't seen that. West Virginia too, but I don't believe any of those teams have played here, in a night game. So I think that's a factor that people are believing in Utah will be the difference. But Utah, I've always thought of them different. It's 60-14 in night games at Rice Eccles since Witt took over. 4 of those losses came at home last season. So, they got 2 home wins back in night games this year. So that's kind of a roundabout. But I expect both teams to play well. I love what Cincinnati brings to the table. They played Nebraska at Arrowhead and lost on a last-second pick. But that's the last time I believe Sorsby threw an interception. And they've only gotten better. So you got a good offensive line, you got a decent defense. Normally those things travel, which sets up for a great game. But all those points, I would lean towards taking Cincinnati.
So ultimately, when Utah has had the advantage in the trenches, it has been an unfair fight. The 2 games where they probably were either even or maybe against that Texas Tech defensive line, those 2 D ends are crazy.
Yeah.
But it feels like, Steve, when you look at some of these metrics, Cincinnati, according to PFF, the last rated defensive line against the run, and Utah's the best rushing team in the Big 12 and the best rushing team in P4. Do you have confidence that Utah's offensive line, one of the best in the Big 12 and in the country, will be able to do kind of what it did against Colorado or Arizona State or West Virginia and open up these lanes and run the football in Cincinnati?
I do. Cincinnati's had more trouble against. I think the biggest factor in the game is both defenses against the quarterback run. We know that's Devin's strength, right? And then when you look at Cincinnati's defense, they've given up 5 rush touchdowns to quarterback already. They're all in the last 4 games. UCF's kid Francher, torched them for over 100. Jalen Daniels went for 5.3 yards for rush, and they give up 6.4 yards of rush on quarterbacks. So the advantage there is Utah, but when I watch Utah, I always expect them to stop the run, and they haven't done that consistently this year. And now you factor in a really good quarterback. I mean, since week 2, Cincinnati's is 5th in the country in points per game at 41.3 and first at yards per play. So you look at, guys like John Henry Daly, being a difference maker. How do they game plan for him? And the quarterback run thing is always fascinating to me. Last week I was at Vandy in Missouri, and Vandy really struggled against power and strength that Missouri has on the edge. And then what do? They adjusted. They go inside. Utah is as versatile a run game team as there is. You go back to last week, first series, jet sweep to the house. Then they get the quarterback going. I mean, the diversity they have with those 2 great tackles really makes them a problem. And I also think time of possession is monstrous in this game. We know how Utah likes to have the ball and then get that crowd involved on defense. And on the other side, Cincinnati held the ball last week. Baylor, who averages as many plays in a game as anybody in the country, they were held to 58 plays last week. That's a recipe that Cincinnati has to bring on the road if they're going to be successful tomorrow night.
We do this thing in cities like this and certainly conferences like this where we really want you guys to like us, Steve. So I'm going to ask you the question about your experience because I've seen you on the sidelines of Rice-Eccles Stadium. You've been here before. And look, yeah. I didn't grow up here, so I know what it's like in other places. I know what it's like in Big Ten, SEC venues. But how does it compare? How does Rice-Eccles compare to other stadiums that you guys go to across the landscape of college football?
Well, I think the size is the first thing you notice. But like when you walk into Rice-Eccles, you're like, wow, this is tight. It's loud. And the different student sections, where it is, I think is really interesting because when you go to these other places, the size of the venue is what makes it really daunting, especially as when you're down on the field. But I would say Rice-Eccles in a night game is a top 10 atmosphere in the sport. I mean, the investment and the passion and the loudness. I mean, I always say the Muss is as active a fan base as there is at games. These other games, people are showing up for light shows, and not with the Muss. They're here to root their team on and make it extremely difficult for the opposing team, and that's what makes great home crowds. They know they're a factor, and that's what's awesome about here. And I think Utah feeds off that more than you just see. A night game at Rice-Eccles, when it's going, you just see the momentum swing. You see the comeback. I go back to that great game with Kincaid and Caleb Williams and Cam in control. I mean, that's an all-timer, and I only think that happens at a place like Rice-Eccles where the team hangs in there, and then fourth quarter they start making plays. And that's just a testament to the fan base and the atmosphere that Rice-Eccles provides.
I was curious about this because, as I referenced, I became familiar with you when you were producing Van Pelt and Rosillo's show, and Ryan's a friend of mine in the business. So I've known your last name for a long, long time. Do you ever get people asking you, like, what is your last name? Are you just known as Stanford Steve?
No, people think Stanford's my first name and Steve is my last name. That's the problem. I got carded last night out to eat, and they were like, "Oh, we never knew that was your last name." So only in Utah, where you're getting carded everywhere, I think maybe more people would know if I lived there, knowing how many times you got to pull out the ID. But it's awesome. It's been a blast being here. I'm really fired up for tomorrow.
That's funny. Let me ask you this. One of the things I always appreciated about you and Ryan and Scott is You did pay attention to, maybe some of the quote-unquote smaller football programs, and you've always spoken very eloquently in detail about Whit. And you and I are about the same age, and I was a student at Utah in the 90s, and so I have perspective and a lot of respect for Ron McBride. I don't want to be disrespectful to Mac, but what Whit has done in 2 decades here as an alumni of the school is just remarkable, and there are a lot of people that are more plugged in than I am, Steve, that believe this is it for him. He has earned the right to tell us when it is, so we'll leave that up to him. But if it is it for Whit, what does this community owe him for 21 years as the head coach of Utah football?
Oh, man, it's funny. We were at dinner last night, and we're talking, and I'm like, Coach Whit's coming on the set, and I'm like, I still go all the way back to 2008 when that Sugar Bowl, and they absolutely gave Coach Saban in Alabama an absolute dose in SEC country. It's one of those games I'll never forget watching because, everybody, look at the coaching carousel, and you look at something to build off of, and as good as it was with Urban and Alex, you had to wonder, all right, what's Kyle going to do here? How's this going to go? And you go and you get a win like that, and then that program just ascends. And they've always been, all the conference change and all that stuff. They've been such a presence, and it just starts with him. The way his players relate to him. I think they've done an unbelievable job of guys that weren't highly drafted still hanging around and having long NFL careers. So I look at the people relations and the player relations that he's had. But just the way he goes about it, it's just all class. You never see him really get riled up on the sideline. And I think, when you have a team, that's trying to manage expectations, it's always good to get your temperament from your head coach. So as good as a dude and a representative of a program as you can have, I think they owe the world to him for what he's done and putting, stapling down the program. Like having flashes in the past. I played against, Chris Mufala and those Utah teams in the late 90s. And it was like, man, where did he get these guys from? But to see the consistency of what Utah has been the best part. And I think that best resembles Whit.
What would you say to our listeners here in the market about the national kind of narrative or perspective on the rivalry game that we have out here with BYU and Utah, which for the 3rd straight time went the way of the Cougars? Do you think it gets its proper respect from folks that cover college football around the country?
I do.
Yeah.
When it's tough. That game's late at night this past year. Where the East Coast is watching ball all day. I think it would to get it. Listen, I played in the Pac-12 and the Pac-10. And that's been a fight for me. Going back east my whole life is the ability for people to stay up. I get how popular the NFL is. There's more NFL teams back east. It's a bigger deal, especially in the Northeast. So the idea of having that game in a great window, I think, is important. But the way the TV contracts are structured now, it's really hard to do. But I do think it's properly assessed. It's only gotten bigger. I think that, I love general hatred between teams, and that's exactly what you guys have here, and that's what makes it so. I do think it's gotten its due. I think just now we need one of those teams to really take that next step and say win a game in the playoff or get a home game in the playoff, which would be absolutely monumental, I think, to really show what you have with a game of that high of stakes in your hometown and really be able to show what you can bring to the table.
Utah needs a lot of things to happen to get to Arlington. BYU does not. They just need to handle their business. How real do you think Kalani's group is this year?
They were real. Last week I've been skeptical. I picked Utah to beat them in the Holy War, and then I went against them last week again. I didn't, to the ability to come back at Arizona and then do the Holy War and then be down multiple touchdowns in a tough place to play in Ames and end up winning in convincing fashion, I thought really showed the testament. I do still think there are teams that will make Bach have to beat Bear have to beat him with his arm. I do think when you look at Texas Tech next week, they are going to put pressure on the run game and try and make them one-dimensional. You look at Cincinnati, who's going to be at home play name. I still think those two teams are going to put BYU in predicaments where I haven't seen them succeed consistently, and that's going to be the test. Can they throw the ball when they have to win games? That's what I'm waiting to see. The turnovers obviously got them rolling last week at Ames, but, on the road, these are going to be monster games. And if they do it, they will have completely earned what I would think is as close to if they go undefeated here, you've got to consider them for a bye if they're going to run the table, knowing the other conferences are going to beat up on teams. But it's a lot easier said than done, and I think they know that. They've been tested, and it's been awesome to see how they've responded, but they still have two monster tests ahead.
Before I say you lose, Steve, appreciate the time. I'll reduce it. Simple question. And you can't throw record out the window. That's not how sports works. But who do you think the best team in the conference is?
Oof. I'm going to lean Texas Tech right now. They lost when they didn't have Morton. They came back with the backup quarterback. I think that defense is going to travel. I think they have a monster test tomorrow. Kansas State, that was it, 3 losses or 4 losses by 13 points. Avery Johnson is been playing as good as anybody in the conference, and they've had a couple tough luck losses, but they're a good team at home. I think Texas Tech's really got to be up for it tomorrow and can't get caught in that look-ahead spot. But if I had to trust somebody, it would be Texas Tech.
Steve, you're the man. As always, a very warm welcome to our market. Enjoy your experience, and obviously, if you need anything from us as your affiliate, let us know, okay?
I appreciate you guys, man. Good luck to everything.
All right, Stanford Steve Coughlin, the producer of SVP and Russillo. That's kind of how he broke in. Now, of course, you can see him on Van Pelt alongside of Scott, and he's a big part of College Game Day, which is here starting tomorrow. They're set up on President Circle right now. They'll get going at 7 o'clock bright and early tomorrow morning. Before we catch a break, we welcome in Ty from 7 Figures Funding on a Friday. Happy Friday, Ty. How are you, man?
Spence, I'm doing great. Thank you. Happy to be here.
I appreciate your time today. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners have always thought, I've got a good side hustle idea. I've got a good small business idea, but I need money to start this idea out. How can you guys help?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do at sevenfigures.com. We found that way too many business owners, gig workers, aspiring entrepreneurs, they have these incredible ideas, but they lack the capital. So we help people build these businesses by connecting them to the best funding options across the entire marketplace. And many of our programs, they offer 0% interest for really up to 18 months so that these business owners have the breathing room so that they can actually grow and scale without these crazy high-interest monthly payments.
Tell us about the process. The website is sevenfigures.com, and that's the digit 7. So the number sevenfigures.com. What can our listeners expect as far as the process goes, Ty?
Yeah, very simple process there. You go to, like you said, the digit sevenfigures.com. You click apply now. It's going to ask for name, address, date of birth. We do a soft credit check. That's one of the best things about the system. There's really no risk. It will not impact your credit whatsoever to see what you qualify for. So you go and enter your name, address, date of birth, and within a few minutes you'll get a message with your next steps, your instructions, the ability to schedule a call with our team.
Last thing, when Leo joined us, you said you guys were offering kind of this free course on how credit works. Is that something you guys still have on the table?
100%. Our mission is to educate and empower the side hustlers, the gig workers, the entrepreneurs. So anybody that applies, we're going to get them lifetime access to our credit college course where they can learn more about how they can become fundable in the lender's eyes.
Go to sevenfigures.com. That is the digit sevenfigures.com. Ty, thanks, buddy. Have a good weekend, okay?
Hey, thank you. You as well.
All right, we got 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We'd love to see you and come by. We've got 1 Smith's gift card left and 2 tailgate passes as well. I'll tell you what, South Jordan, Daybreak, wherever we're at, you guys have shown up. I'm very impressed. I need to eat some crow. 5448 Daybreak Parkway is where we're at. Come by and say hello. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We'll get back to some college football with Dave Bartu. But guys, NBA Cup. I know. You're pumped. Dave McMiniman will stop by. We'll do a little hoops coming up before we're back to college football for the final 90 minutes of the show. It's a drive on a Friday, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. You know, Porter, I woke up today, and for some reason it felt like Christmas morning. I couldn't really pinpoint it. I just felt like giddy, excited, nervous, anxious, and I'm like, all right, Halloween? No. Utah, Cincinnati tomorrow? No. And then I realized today is day one of the NBA Emirates Cup, buddy. Did you even know that when you woke up?
I thought you were just talking about Dave McMenamin on the drive.
Well,
but also the NBA Cup, of course.
Certainly, the music means we get to welcome back one of our favorites, and now for the next 6 or 7 months, I get to ask dangerous questions and watch him tap around where I'm trying to go. Dave McMenamin, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Yeah, you remember being a kid and you played the game where the living room floor is lava, and you had to like jump from sofa to love seat to end table so you didn't step in the lava. That is the experience of joining your show every week. Just try not to step into the lava with whatever you lob me.
And you're a masterful jumper at that, Dave. So right out of the gates, are you as giddy as the rest of us are that today is day one of the NBA Emirates Cup?
You know, I did like the name better before, the in-season tournament. I felt like it made a lot of sense what we were doing. The NBA Cup, you could still play the in-season tournament to earn the NBA Cup. I think that would maybe make a little bit more sense. But, hey, you know what? It's something different. The courts are different. I think they are using a ball with a special emblem on it this year. And if we can get people, get people that care about the NBA as much as you do, and Porter does, and as I do, at this time of the sports calendar when World Series are going on, college football is going on, NFL seemingly has a game every freaking day of the week, I think it's a good thing.
Wait. You buried the lead. Did you say a ball with a special emblem on it, Dave? Okay, well, I didn't. I'm all in now, brother. I am all in now.
I mean, this is the little things, right? Rather than the same old routine, you just change things up a little. It's like a new cologne for the league,
Okay.
Maybe you're going to attract your partner in a different way.
Okay, a little Dracar Noir for listeners of a certain age, if you ever wore a cologne in the 90s. All right, look, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter. Like, really, ultimately, do you get a feeling that this lands differently for the players and coaches? Are they kind of excited for something different during the season?
I do. I mean, I think to a certain extent there is a little bit of the money as an incentive, quite frankly, and that's okay, right? Like, if you can ultimately create a better product, because these guys know that at the end of the rainbow, if you play a little bit harder 4 times to get a chance to play in the semifinals in Vegas and earn an extra $500,000 for a night's work, you get a little bit more out of these guys, and ultimately, like, I think the NBA is a great product. I think the NBA regular season has suffered over the last decade, and part of it is what we saw Michael Jordan talking to Mike Tirico on NBC about. The load management has had unintended consequences, right? It was kind of created by Greg Popovich to try to elongate a dynasty with aging players, and so, hey, I need my guys ready April through June, so I'm going to sit them out sometimes during the regular season, and it ended up being a copycat league, and other teams that had younger players started doing the same thing. And so I think this is along with the league's effort of, hey, you got to play 65 games in the regular season in order to qualify for awards. And, hey, if there's a back-to-back, you can't hold out your marquee guys of the national TV game of the 2 back-to-backs. We want more people being a chance to watch your guys. All this is an effort to just make the NBA celebrated for the great product that is, rather than be kind of picked apart for the parts that it's missing.
All right, moving over to future Jazzman Austin Reeves now, Dave. Look, we've got Walker, we've got Filipowski, we've got marketing. It just feels like Austin Reeves is the next piece of the puzzle. And, you bring in an Alex Caruso, and, folks around here might sit up and take notice. Obviously, I kid. But, look, I'm not going to be the guy that takes the victory lap. I was always confused he was really smooth at Oklahoma. He was a really good college basketball player. No one gave him a chance. And yes, the usage will be up when LeBron is out and Luka is out. But what sort of growth are you seeing from Austin Reeves, and what does this mean for the future of, what he is worth on the open market if it actually gets there?
I mean, listen, he had a tremendous season last year, his fourth year in the league, finished averaging 20 points per game. Really from the middle of the season onward, when the Lakers acquired Luka Doncic, he only actually enhanced his role because Luka wasn't quite the Luka that we see right now, and also J.J. Redick recognized that, hey, we weren't going to be able to do a lot of offensive sets on the fly. We had basically no practice days. So if I just empower Austin to play alongside LeBron and Luka, we're going to play off these guys' instincts, and we're going to be in pretty good shape because he's that talented. And he's come in. He hasn't quite got the pub and the credit for the off-season transformation of his body like Luka Doncic did, but he did get stronger. He has seemingly more stamina when he's out there on the court, and clearly the confidence is at an all-time high, and good for him, because we're talking about a guy who in the summertime bet on himself. He was offered a 4-year, $89 million extension by the Lakers, which was the maximum they could offer him at that time. And he said, thanks, but no thanks. And listen, it doesn't mean I don't want to continue to be a Laker. He's repeatedly stated that he likes being a Laker, and if he could draw up his career in a storybook, it would begin with the Lakers and end with the Lakers. However, he sees his market value being in the $30 million plus per year range. And I mean, what we've seen out of him the first week of the season, that certainly is something that would be warranted if he can extrapolate this through next summer, when there's going to be about 10 teams in the league with significant cap space.
So I'm not going to bring up the decision two. I'm not going to bring up all the corny things that drive me crazy. But sciatica is code for I'm just old now. What are we expecting to see from LeBron James? And does it feel like we are inching closer and closer to him actually saying goodbye? There was this crazy social media buzz when he did his Hennessy thing, and most people thought, okay, he will announce that he is stepping aside so he can do what, Kareem did, a lot of other players did, take their farewell tour and get gifts from every team as he says goodbye. But we haven't seen him yet, right, Dave? Where are we at with LeBron right now?
Yeah, first of all, the sciatica thing, it's tough to be an observer and be like, oh, well, I still see him, walking around at the Dodgers game, and he's sitting on the bench. It doesn't look like he's limping. From my understanding, it's a nerve issue that impacts the lower back, and in his case, the right side, the back of his lower leg. And it is something that comes and goes. And so there's kind of been a two-part to the rehab here. They need to calm down the nerve, and then they need to ramp up his body because, LeBron is LeBron. He's not just a role player who's going to come back and say, you know what, bring me back on a minutes restriction, and I can ramp myself up while I'm in the lineup. He has a standard of play that he's presented to the world for the last 22 years, and he's not going to come back on the court until he feels like he can be that guy. And so, there's going to be some time here where he is looking to do individual workouts on the court just to get his wind, his stamina, his rhythm back. And then he'll probably be doing, some stay ready games with the guys who aren't playing, and then be in a place. And JJ Redick just said earlier this week that place will be, the Lakers think, sometime in the second or third week of November, where he's making his debut. Now, in the meantime, was it a great look that he did that decision two thing? Absolutely not. And I think the public backlash to it was enough evidence of that. And, my take on it is I hope the check was pretty big. I hope it was worth it. But beyond that, I mean, this Lakers team, it's kind of been a positive, quite frankly, the time he's been missing, because if there was concern from LeBron and his camp about this roster construction, whether it was up to snuff in terms of being a true championship contender. I'm not saying that they look like championship contenders thus far, but they certainly look like a team that has some grit, has some versatility, and has some camaraderie. And if you can add LeBron James to that, looking like the guy who was an All-NBA player last year, I think it bodes well for what this Lakers season could be.
You know, I want to stay in the space for a moment. Of course, it's a new era of consumption of pro basketball. If you're a fan, you have to pay a lot of money for a lot of streaming services, and you have to check, all right, is it Amazon? Is it ESPN? Is it ABC? Is it NBC? Who is it? So, you know, look, if you love pro basketball like I do, you're going to figure it out. And as a result of Mike being on NBC's coverage and, you know, just kind of having that nostalgia return to the table, it's reminded me how he had such widespread acceptance across the landscape of not just the NBA, but everywhere. And to juxtapose it with what I perceive to be a very polarizing reaction to LeBron, even though LeBron is clearly our generation's that. Why do you think that is?
I think he benefited a little bit from scarcity, because when we saw MJ, it was the kind of the glowing, flying through the air figure a couple times a week, maybe a few times a week if you're lucky enough to have WGN where you grew up, beyond just watching the NBC games. But when you consume Michael Jordan, it was in a marquee game, and obviously that's where he shined the best. It was in a amazing Nike commercial ad, or a endearing McDonald's or Gatorade commercial, or playing for the Dream Team, or starring in Space Jam, the original, which was a hit. Like, he didn't miss. It was all wins. Versus LeBron had, and don't get me wrong, the 6 for 6 in the finals also was a huge part of that. When the most people were watching, he was at his absolute best. LeBron has had ups and downs in the finals, of course, 4 wins, 5 losses. Also, he's done a lot of stuff like the decision too, whether it be, a poorly conceived ad or just being on social media, whether it's right or wrong on social media, but just being there. And so it's this unvarnished version of him. It's this kind of oversaturated version of him. And I don't think like today's consumers have the reverence for him because, again, he's kind of always in your face.
So because it is a new era of NBA consumption, I need to ask a follow-up question based off a conversation we had last year. Has Shaq tried to stuff you in a locker? Have you come face-to-face with Kenny Smith? Because you did say if you came face-to-face with Kenny, you feel like you could at least outrun him. What's it been like to have the inside guys over there?
Oh, man. Well, I exchanged some nice messages with Charles and Ernie over the summer, which was wonderful. I've yet to see Shaq or Kenny. Shaq and I have a decent rapport. Actually, randomly was in a music video for my barber. And so we made a little connection over that. But Kenny, I got to get to know. Kenny and I, unfortunately, both kind of stepped in it this week to various degrees, coming off that amazing performance by Austin Reeves in Minnesota, which capped 51 points on Sunday, 41 points on Monday, and then 28 points, 16 assists in the game winner on Wednesday. We both evoked the Jeremy Lin sanity run. Now, and my belief was both of us were not talking about Jeremy Lin, the player, versus Austin Reeves, the player. There's no conversation there. Austin Reeves is much better. We were referring to the hype of the moment, and you are kind of capturing the imagination of sports fans. When all eyeballs are on you, you raise your own bar. To me, that was the parallel there. And both of us got many Laker fans very upset with us. How dare we compare AR, the new great up-and-coming Laker to a flash in the pan Nick. That wasn't the point. It was he is really taking center stage and outdoing himself night after night. So Kenny and I do have something to kind of bond over when we do get to spend some time this season.
I'm sorry, did you say Shaq was in a music video for your barber?
Yes, he absolutely was.
Okay, all right, just a quick follow-up, Dave. Remind our listeners in Salt Lake how much you pay for your haircut.
Oh man, I mean we're talking talking north of a C note with the tip involved. But there's a beard also. It's
Don't.
place to go.
No. If you're paying over $100 for a haircut, it's good to be Dave McMiniman. All right, moving off of this. Look, we've known for years, quite frankly, certainly in our market, because we had Rudy here, when the buzz started about Victor, and it's like, okay, then you see some videos, then you see him standing next to Rudy, and I'm like, dude, he's 3 inches taller than Gobert. But what have you seen so far, and how terrified should the rest of the league be about Victor Wembanyama?
Man, I mean, I saw some clips coming out of the preseason, and I was texting with Michael Wright, who's our kind of day-to-day NBA reporter for ESPN based in San Antonio, and he's like, yeah, it does seem different, but he was only playing about 20 minutes a game, and it's like, okay, preseason's kind of weird anyway. It seemed like he made a leap, but I'm not so sure. And then you watch him opening night against Dallas. And, Anthony Davis is a player that I have a ton of respect for. I've covered some of the best basketball of his career when he was a Laker. And Anthony Davis kind of had enough stamina and energy and skill to stay with Wemby kind of tit for tat for maybe the first quarter, maybe 3/4 of the first quarter. And from there, Wemby just completely dominated the game. Not just dominated Anthony Davis, their individual matchup, the entire game. And he did it, obviously, on the defensive end, but then offensively, and I give credit to Brian Windhorst for kind of digging into the numbers on this, but it wasn't just opening night where, he made a couple threes, I believe, but it wasn't like he was shooting a ton of threes. He's really changed his shot diet, where he is taking far less shots outside the paint, far more shots towards the basket, which allows him to get to the free throw line better. He has a good free throw stroke. That can allow him to not only up his numbers offensively, but it gives him a chance to naturally reset his body to give him a little bit more energy for the next shift he has on defense. It's just incredible. And you look at their team right now, De'Aaron Fox is injured right now. Obviously every team, when you bring back a player, there could be an adjustment period, but to me, I just look at they're going to add talent to this group, and it could be the time is now, which is you're talking about a third-year player. You thought going into this year that it's kind of OKC and everybody else in the West, but they're 5-0, OKC 6-0, and I understand OKC is missing Jalen Williams, so they have some more talent coming their way as well. But man, he has made it where I can't get enough of the Spurs on national TV. And certainly if I don't get a chance to watch them on national TV, when I'm checking the box scores every night and checking highlights, I need to check San Antonio's stuff because he does things I've never seen before on a nightly basis. And so I guess if we want to extrapolate the Linsanity thing, he's doing it too, but he's doing it over a longer period of time. It's wild to me what he is able to accomplish on both ends. And then he also has the humility where, Bam Adebayo dunks on him last night, and he tells reporters, rather than be offended by someone dare ask him about a play like that could come off as embarrassing, he said, no, I'm going to keep challenging guys at the rim. And I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, I'm going to block more of them. I'm going to be dunked on. And if that ever changes, you call me and you tell me, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. I just think his mentality is fantastic as well.
Yeah, their top 5 scorers are all 25 and under. So it's okay, maybe the time is now, but should we put them alongside Oklahoma City now as the team? Okay, I know the new CBA, discourages these dynasties, and there will be money decisions that even Oklahoma City is going to have to make at some point that might break the thing up. But is it time to say that, at least as we sit here today, San Antonio and Oklahoma City are the two teams that might not just be now, but might be for a long time?
I mean, they both are certainly built for the long haul. And you talk about Stephon Castle being in San Antonio. What we've seen thus far, Dylan Harper's been impressive. They have depth, and then enough veterans, as I mentioned, Fox when he comes back, Harrison Barnes, a guy who's been there, played in huge games when he was with the Warriors. I mean, it's a really good group. And then OKC, obviously, we already know about their runway they have ahead of them. Of course, at some point, that maybe they're going to have to get off of, Lou Dort's money or something like that. We'll see. But if that does happen, they have a ton of draft picks also that they could trade for someone on expiring to avoid a long-term kind of luxury tax bill too. So like both those teams are really set up well. And listen, beyond that, I think there is kind of like a lot of possibility in the Western Conference. The Lakers, we can't really judge what they're going to be like until we see LeBron with this group, but I think they're in the mix. Golden State, they've looked up and down, but they're also not playing their guy. Like Al Horford's not going to play back-to-backs all season long because of where he's at age-wise. So it's going to be hard to judge what they really are. Minnesota's not had Anthony Edwards because of his hamstring issue. Denver is trying to integrate Cam Johnson. I think when he does get right, they're going to be really tough. Like there's a lot of good teams, which makes it also fun because you're like, oh, it's not just OKC and San Antonio beating up on teams with no chance. Like, no, they're earning it against a pretty good league right now.
Yeah, notice you didn't include the Jazz there. Small market bias again. All right.
Good start for the Jazz, though. Good
yeah.
For the Jazz.
Now look, I would say fine start for the Jazz. They still don't guard. They turn the ball over a lot. And before I set you loose, I will get a thought on this, though, because unfortunately, Dave, we're going to be covering the Jazz the same way we were a year ago. Now, Austin Ainge is now calling the shots, and I very much like and respect Austin. I think he's a bright executive. I don't know anyone that doesn't think Will's the right guy, and certainly the Jazz are included because he's got like a 25-year runway. But, this comes down to one factor, and that is that top 8 protected pick that goes to, you guessed it, Oklahoma City, if the Jazz are not in the bottom 8. And in a process that is still a ways away from being a serious competitive team, you just cannot lose that asset. You just can't. So good start aside, 2-2 over the first 4. There's still issues here. But what do you think we're going to see? Because, look, I think if Will played his best players for 48 minutes in 82 games, this isn't a team that's bad enough to be one of the bottom 7 or 8 teams in the league. Like, Lowry is really good, and we're being reminded of that, and Walker's off to a great start. What do you think this season is going to look like for the Utah Jazz?
I'm with you. Like, I do think if they had designs on playing their best players from now until the middle of April, and not kind of peeling stuff back or taking their foot off the pedal a little bit, like why couldn't they be kind of what Portland was last year, which was just a hellish of a time for every opponent because they played hard, they played smart, and they had good coaching. And you're talking about a team that was roughly 500 for the second half of last year when they got a little healthy. Like that to me is what this Utah team looks like. And, I just don't know how it's going to break because everything we hear about is like next year's draft is going to be one of the better ones that we've had, maybe in the last decade or so. And so what is the ultimate goal for the franchise in order to maximize a time when, okay, like you're not a championship contender. That's no criticism towards this group, but it's just the reality. And if you want to get there, what actually serves the team better? Playing as hard as you can for 40 or so games and then changing direction and maybe trading off some parts in order to gain more draft capital. And it's going to hurt you, obviously, ranking-wise in the kind of win-loss column for the second half of the season, but set yourself up better for the ping-pong balls and set yourself up better for having trade assets to then strike when you're ready to kind of build up. I still think that's probably the path they're going to take. And if you're a fan, I can understand it can be frustrating, but I think so long as you trust the front office to identify the folks that are still going to be there when you build back up from the rubble, then you'll be okay. But that's sometimes hard. Like sometimes the team doesn't identify the right players. And so they sell on a guy too soon or they invest in a guy too long. And now all of a sudden the rebuild takes longer than anybody would have hoped for. And then it becomes frustrating as a fan. You're like, come on, I'm tired of this. It's been 7 years of this kind of like in the middle type of ground. Like, can we actually go for something? And so it's I intellectually understand what they're doing. I think it's going to be harder executed than they kind of theoretically put together. But like you, I mean, I think Austin Age is a pretty good guy to be running things.
So, Dave, I appreciate the time today, and you jumped very well. And I want to acknowledge a little bit of growth on my end because I did not ask you if I should take Jake LaRavia under rebounds first quarter on FanDuel tonight. I did not ask you that, Dave. I did not ask you that, so you're welcome.
I didn't hear it either, so I appreciate it.
The great Dave McMenamin, my guy. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye.
All right, Dave McMenamin, NBA Daily Assist Style, covers the association for ESPN. Always appreciate Dave's time. We're going to get back to college football coming up on the other side with Dave Bartu. We're going to get weird in the 4 o'clock hour with a couple of Daves. But before we catch a break, I'm getting back to football. Are you getting back to football? Well, if you have YouTube TV, you're probably not. But there is still time to make the switch prior to college football Saturday. You'll be able to see Utah if you dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
That is what you got to do. Pick up the phone, call us, guys. New promotion, new offer. They cleaned up this offer. It's super easy and simple. There's no extra fees. The America's Top 120 package, about 170 channels, guys. It's just $89 a month. That's the flat price. If you want to go up a package, it's $99. That's the same, and that's the flat price. It includes the DVR, includes all the additional. It actually includes additional receivers. So call us up, take advantage of this offer. We'll throw in Showtime, Paramount Plus, Stars free for 4 months. We'll get you installed as early as next day if you call us now. Plus, we'll throw in dinner at JCW's. This is an opportunity, guys. If you're going to miss this game and you're unhappy with your current provider, pick up the phone and call us. Take advantage of this great deal and get dinner on us. 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. We're live at Smith's today at 5448 Daybreak Parkway. However, we are out of passes. We are out of gift cards because, as I always say, Daybreak shows up. We'll catch a break. Dave Bartu joins us coming up on the other side. Then we'll get into the 5 o'clock hour. We'll say goodnight at 6 in time for Game 6 of the World Series. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. College game day is here. They're set up, at President's Circle up on campus in preparation for tomorrow night's game. Cincinnati and Utah. Utah's a 10-point favorite. Our next guest joins us from time to time when he's not hunting elk or selling products to talk college football. Dave Bartu, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
No, dude, I'm doing good. I just never thought it would be this crazy busy for us and coaching searches and staffing in bloody October, man.
Yeah, you know what? Let's no. I have to ask you where you're at and what you're doing. It's my favorite part of our interview. I got to know what's going on with you.
Well, I just came in. It's supposed to be cold tonight, so I know it's not cold for Utah. Don't get me wrong. We're not mountain high here, but it's supposed to get below freezing for the first time this year. So just making sure chickens and pigs and everything on the farm are ready to roll for a little bit of colder weather tonight.
Okay, there you go. For our listeners that may not know, when you intro the interview that way, with all of these big-time coaching jobs open this time of year, how does that affect your day-to-day? How many people are contacting you? What sort of conversations are you having?
I don't have a day-to-day. I mean, it is just hour to hour, and it feels like coaches' hours. It's not so bad right now because the athletic directors, usually the earliest calls will be 4 in the morning. East Coast time, they're getting in 7:30, 8, sometimes a little bit before that. But you start getting into November and December, and some of these coaches that are working 24 hours a day, it feels like, you don't know when that phone's going to ring. And so quite literally, it might be earlier this year, but come December for the last 5 years, my wife's like, you're sleeping in another room because I don't know when that phone's ringing, and it drives me crazy. That's how bad it gets.
Wow, that's wild. What's the best job open right now, in your opinion?
Oh, geez, the one that pays the most. It's funny because I see people talking about it on the interwebs and social media and this, that, and the other, and it always cracks me up because every business I've ever run, it's always about who pays the most money. There's only one guy in college football I've ever seen turn down the smaller contract. Once in 8 years of doing this. I have only seen one coach say, I will take less money, and never considered the location. Okay? And outside of that, it's a business. They don't care about the logo they have on. They don't care about, fan pride or alumni or this, that, and the other. Maybe if you got a guy that went to school there, maybe a little bit different, but overall it's still business, and the agent's going to push the guy to whoever cashes the biggest check.
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue with that. There was a Arkansas reporter that floated out that the Arkansas Board of Regents or some powerful boosters, I don't remember what the language was, actually landed in Provo this week during a bye week for BYU. I don't know how much you know about Jay Hill. I know you know about all these staffs, but I don't think Kalani would leave BYU. But I do think Jay Hill would like to be a head coach on a P4 level. He's been a head coach before, but at Weber. Yeah, when it comes to any of these open jobs, do you think Jay Hill's, like the good ones, do you think Jay Hill's a viable candidate?
Oh, sure. I've been saying now how viable, I don't know, but there's a couple things that your listeners might really like to hear, in my experience, that nobody ever talks about. And it's two really big things. Number one, anything you see on your social medias, anything that, somebody from Arkansas talked about this, look, it's all BS. 99% of everything out there is somebody throwing a dart, hoping something sticks on a blanket, sticks on the wall. It's all made up. The 1% that's real is either a booster or agent floating a balloon. I have worked on over 100 different coaching searches, head coaching searches, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, unit coaches, you name it. There has not been one time in 8 years that something real came out of those searches internally. It's all made up. There's nothing real out there. It's all pretend, and it sounds great, but something. Jay Hill's a good OC, okay, and he's having a decent year. I mean, he's 28th in offensive scoring efficiency right now. I mean, that's not elite. It's nothing that really makes you want to sit up and go, "Whoo, That's really awesome. That's the kind of guy that I need running my offense at Arkansas. But the other part of it is a lot of people think that these coaching searches are very small. You know, our target's 3 guys, 4 guys, 5 guys. I have never had a head coach send me a group of guys to review less than 11. Never been less than 11. And the largest head coaching search, the first list I got from an AD was 47 guys. And a lot of the reason that ADs and head coaches will interview a ton of guys that you don't know about is connectivity. It's their chance. They have an opening to get connected with guys that they'll never hire right now, but they might hire in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So there is a ton more interviews going on than people realize, and most everything you hear out there is all smoke and no fire.
So the LSU situation took a weird turn, and whenever politicians insert themselves into sports, I just want to be like, hey, will you leave us alone? You can just go do your thing and let us do our thing over here. But the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, he told reporters that Scott Woodward would not be involved in selecting the new head football coach, and then Scott was fired. How do you think this ends? And is this as unique to you as it seems to me?
It's wonderfully unique. It's not the first time we've seen politicians jump in at the LSU level where it makes us turn our head. But a lot of people forget or don't realize there was a guy that won a conference championship, but the politicians in his state didn't like him, and he was fired. That was Doc Holliday at Marshall. Won a conference title. I think he went 10-2, and people didn't like him, so they fired him. So it's not the first time I've seen politics and people jump in with 2 feet, claiming, oh, this is taxpayer money, so I get to play athletic director and hire and fire. But, to lose your AD, and I do see a lot of people going, oh, there's a lot of instability there. Oh, nobody's going to want to go work there. How much are they paying? That's it. You're talking about a program that has the 3rd most starts in the NFL in the last decade. It's a national championship level talent in LSU every single year for the last 25 years. It's never changed. The talent's there. If the money is there, I promise you, coaches, every head coach I've dealt with, good, bad, fired, young, old, it doesn't matter. They all think they can win there. There is not one head coach. You ask Jay Hill, you ask Morgan Scalley, you ask Whittingham, you ask Sataki. If they were at LSU, they 100% believe they can win a national title. And that's part of being a head coach. You have to just look at those 12 games like, I am just going to go do it myself and get it done and not think about the downside. I don't think it's going to hurt them at all. I think it's just, again, a lot of stuff in the media, people trying to just have something to clickbait on.
We had Tony Pike on earlier this week, who played quarterback for Brian Kelly at Cincinnati because Cincinnati's in town. Coming up tomorrow to take on the Utes, and Tony's on their broadcast team, and he had some interesting things to share about his former coach. And, as you know, Dave, when a coach loses a job, it's like when your friend gets divorced, then you learn maybe how crazy she actually was and you didn't know prior to. So what do your metrics say about Brian Kelly, and what ultimately do you think did him in at LSU?
Oh, man. Okay, so what did him in? I actually had an AD ask me that, and I got a great answer for you here. But let's talk about Brian Kelly before LSU. When he was hired, on paper in our numbers, that was the best guy available. He's done it at multiple stops. Before Cincinnati, what was it? Was it Central or Western Michigan? He was really good at. Mm-hmm. And he goes to Cincinnati. He went back-to-back BCS bowl games at Cincinnati, right, back-to-back. Then he went to Notre Dame, and did he make 1 or 2 national title games? I can't remember.
Only 1. I think he made 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but he made 1. At Notre Dame with their academic requirements, and but every single he coached above talent. And he got a lot out of the players, and he recruited pretty well. But one of the things that was always kind of a concern was his ability to staff. He would hire a lot of some buddies or next man up, but it never really got him in trouble. He was able to skate by it. But I did have an AD that I was working with, and one of his questions was simply, is there anything inside the numbers that all these guys, because we've got 11 guys fired so far this month in the FBS, what's the common thread? And so I ran the number. I ran the regression on it. I plugged everything I had into even AI, went through all of it. There was nothing that was similar in terms of performance prior to getting there. But what was a common thread was bad hires. And you look at Brian Kelly, and so when he went to LSU, he kept his defensive coordinator, Matt House. Matt House is a 2.5-star subpar defensive coordinator in our numbers, and his defensive staff graded out as the second worst in the SEC. Guess who had the second worst scoring efficiency defense in the SEC that year? LSU. Boom, just lost a year. Now I had to go hire another guy. Boom, just lost another year. The defense finally turned around in year 3, but he lost Mike Denbrock, 4.5-star offensive coordinator, went back to Notre Dame. He went next man up with a 2.5-star offensive coordinator, Joe Sloan. The AD wanted to fire Sloan, and Brian Kelly wanted to throw him under the bus. It was staffing. I promise you, I really do believe this. If he hires Blake Baker and that defensive staff and keeps Mike Denbrock, not only does he have a job, LSU is top 5, and we are talking national championship level team right now. That's how tight coaching is.
So Penn State, of course, is open, and we'll see. To your point, ultimately, what does the money look like? And look, you hear a bunch of rumors. But ultimately, what sort of job is that on the open market, and how do you think they're going to go about it? And who do you have a thought about who ends up with that gig?
Well, I mean, our first thought on it was Mike Elko. The first guy that came to mind was Mike Elko. Very first guy. When James was fired, totally, my brain had a hard time wrapping my mind around it. I mean, this guy went 34-8 leading up to him getting fired. Had a good OC, had a good DC. A defensive coordinator that takes 2 or 3 years to implement his highly complex schemes. And they didn't want to wait for that with Jim Knowles. Ohio State did, and it got him a national title 3 years later. But, again, you are behind Ohio State. You're behind Oregon in recruiting. You're a second-tier recruiter. You're a program that without a first-pick NFL draft-type quarterback, you're never winning a national title. And so the expectations there, I believe, are too high at Penn State because, I don't think that national title is coming back to the door probably in my lifetime. But they also went onto the market when there's not a lot of guys. There's not a lot out there. There's not really many elite OCs and DCs. There's not a lot of guys that are, Signetti just got tied up. I figured Kurt would go to an LSU, a Florida, a Penn State, upgrade the talent, and have more consistency there. So I think Penn State is, if they don't get Mike Elko, and Mike Elko is not an upgrade, I think Penn State's going to be lucky to be even. They'll probably end up downgrading from James Franklin because, well, I think they thought they're better than they were, and they probably should have just hung on to Franklin, in my opinion.
So there's an elite defensive coordinator in Salt Lake City named Morgan Scalley, Dave, as you know. And the plan that is in place is when Coach Witt decides to step aside, Morgan moves over a seat and gets the job. And that could come as soon as this offseason. There's no announcement that way. There's no, if there is a promise, it has not been made public. Would any of these schools be advised? Like, look, Morgan's a Utah guy. He grew up here, played here, he's coached here, and I believe that really is his dream job. But if Penn State or LSU or Florida or whatever comes at Morgan and throws him a bag of cash, I don't know if he'd consider it, but I feel like that's something they should at least look at. What are your thoughts there?
I'd at least give him a call, right? Even if he says, I'm not coming to Penn State, even if he says, I'm not going to LSU or Arkansas, that's a contact I want to make as an AD. I want to know Morgan because what if he stays at Utah and he is successful? Right? It doesn't mean he's going to stay there forever. Money talks. And so, he's top 10 defensive coordinator of the last decade right now, active DC. So he can bring an elite defense with him. I am absolutely giving him a call and at least understanding who he is and what makes him tick, whether he's willing to come now or maybe later. But you've got to make that connection with every top OC and DC in the country if you're an AD, in my opinion.
Before I set you loose, Dave, I do want to get your thoughts on the game we have here tomorrow night. Scott Satterfield, who I feel like started the season with a lot of questions, maybe on the hot seat, has coached his way into potentially winning Coach of the Year in the conference if they can handle their business. Then, of course, on the other side, Coach winning the Utah Utes. Utah 10-point favorite. Before I say you lose, how do you think this goes down tomorrow night?
Oh, I think it's going to be awesome, dude. I am looking forward to this game. I mean, you're talking about net offensive and defensive scoring efficiency combined. Utah is number 7 in the country. Cincinnati is number 13 in the country. These are two really, really good football teams, in my opinion. And, yeah, for BYU fans listening, you're right in between both of those, and I know you just beat Utah. Big 12 has 4 teams that are just awesome this year, in my opinion. As far as game outcome, my favorite model, I have it 27. Well, I mean, technically it's 26.3 to 22.1. I got Utah by 4, 27-23. I just think this is going to be one of the at least on paper, this is one of the absolute best football games this weekend. Are you guys kicking off at night? Is this a night game?
Yep.
Oh, how cold is it going to be?
Yeah, no, can't wait. Who's the best team in the Big 12, Dave?
Yeah, no, it's going to be awesome. I think Cincinnati, BYU, Texas Tech, Utah. 2 weeks ago, I said those were the 4 contenders for the Big 12 championship game. And I'm not going to change my mind on that. I think this is a massive game for both programs this weekend.
Okay, Dave, I appreciate the time. Have a good weekend, okay?
You too. Thank you.
All right, Dave Bartu. Before we catch a break, college football this weekend is going to be awesome. Can you watch it? If you have YouTube TV, the answer is no. Good news is it's not too late to make the change before the Utah game, but you have to call right now. It's 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Definitely call us up right now. Listen, if you're caught in a situation where you're not going to have any ABC, you're not going to have any ESPN, you're going to miss access to watching game day and the game itself, listen, call us up. We can have you installed tomorrow. Get set up with this awesome new promotion Dish has. They've kept it super simple. $89 a month includes all the fees, DVR, everything. It's like 170 channels. It's a great package to get set up on. You're going to get all the ESPNs. Very competitive. The price is guaranteed not to change. You get the biggest DVR out there. 16 tuners, 2 terabytes. It auto records your games for you. So if you're a Jazz fan, probably couldn't watch the Jazz anyways because you don't have K-Jazz on YouTube TV. But you do with Dish. Plus, you'll be able to watch all your college football. You can get you set up with movie channels for free, and you'll auto-record your games, auto-record the locals, and auto-hop commercials. Best equipment out there. Plus, it's integrated with all the streaming, so all of your streaming apps will just be built into the system. You have one remote. You switch back and forth with your traditional TV and with streaming. Makes it simple and easy. Call us today. We'll get you set up and installed. Throw in dinner at JCW's. Get you this 2-year offer where the price is guaranteed. $89 a month, guys. Can't go wrong. 424-DISH. 801-424-3474.
All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program is all college football. We'll say goodnight at 6 in time for the Game 6 of the World Series, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. Yeah, I guess Vodtech is in action at home in Blacksburg against Louisville, a rivalry game of sorts. And, of course, our producer, Porter Larson, is our resident Vodtech fan. High hopes, low hopes for tomorrow night in Blacksburg at Lane Stadium, young man?
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, Louisville, good squad. So, I don't want to be like too overconfident, but we've got Utah taking on the number 17 team in the country. We got VT taking on the number 16 team in the country. Spence, I think they both win this weekend against top 17 teams. And then I think I go home happy on Saturday night. We'll see.
I like the confidence. Are you misbehaving tonight on any level? Are we dressing up? Are we getting weird? What's Halloween night look like for Porter Larson?
I don't think so. I mean, I've got a few invites as far as the Halloween parties go. I'm not a huge dresser-upper and currently entirely sober. So I don't know. Maybe I'll harass some teenagers around the neighborhood. Stop by a friend's party or two, but nothing too crazy. We've got an early game day morning tomorrow.
Going to go ahead and say don't harass the teenagers as, kind of your quasi-older brother at work. That usually doesn't end well because they're teens. They can't be prosecuted. You're a grown-up. You can go to jail. Just maybe stay away from that.
Right.
I've
had enough.
Advice.
The teenagers on electric scooters taking over the neighborhood. I've had enough, Spence.
Yeah. I'm with you. The youngs are out of control. There's no doubt. All right, my final score prediction. You can tune in tomorrow for Porter's because he'll host pregame starting at 4:15. I've been saying it all week. I like the Utes. I don't like the line. I'm going to take Utah 31, Cincinnati 24. And Utah gets it done at home tomorrow as the eyes of America will be on Salt Lake City. College game day is here. All right, Porter, let's get our Halloween weekend started. What comes our way as we say goodnight for Game 6 of the World Series? What comes our way on a Monday edition of the program?
Yeah, you mentioned it, man. We'll be heavy on the college football, reacting to Utah and Cincinnati, the weekend that was in college football. How about the NBA Cup? We'll give you the update there as well. Not a whole lot else going on over the weekend, so we'll be heavy on the Utes. Scott Mitchell, Josh Furlong, Bill Riley. Of course, you'll hear from Kyle Whittingham at his weekly press conference, and we'll go from there. Maybe sneak in a little Jazz and NBA chatter as well.
Okay, there you go. So enjoy it. There are only 2 home games left for Utah football. Come on by and say hello to our ESPN 700 tailgate setup. We are going to have a good time. I want to say a very special thank you to this community. I was wrong. I didn't know what to expect. It's my first time out here, but I live here now, out in Daybreak or West Jordan or wherever we are. Our good friends at Smith's 5448 Daybreak Parkway. Special thanks to everybody who stopped by. Special thank you today to Kyle Bonagura, Sam Bruckhouse, Stanford, Steve Coughlin, Dave McMiniman, and Dave Bartu. A lot of good stuff on the show today. Good news. Did you miss any of it? Well, it's up on the website for your consumption. ESPN700sports.com is where you go. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out our podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars for Porter and Cynthia. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some Utah football. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Be safe out there on Halloween night. We'll talk to you on a Monday Drive. As always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.